Wasby,
Sure.
Madam President Corbett,
I'm here.
and staff on the call, General Manager Doyle, District Counsel Victor, Deputy General Manager Alvarez, Assistant General Managers, and Chief Chibaro, Carol Johnson, Jim O'Connor, Deborah Ocker, Christine Kelch, and staff.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
I would like to ask Director Lane to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To
The flag
of the
United States of America, to the republic,
and to the republic for which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under
God,
God, indivisible, with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all.
all.
Someday.
Thank you very much. Today's meeting is held in accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order allowing for board members to participate remotely. We're also providing live audio and video streaming to enable the public an opportunity to take part in our meetings. They have the ability to submit written comments or to make public comments on our agenda and on our staff reports. And I would like to ask the clerk to remind the public the ways in which they can participate in our online meetings.
Yes, Madam President, the public can participate via voicemail by calling in 510-544-2016 and leaving a message. They can send me an email at yburial@ebparks.org. And all of this information is provided on our agenda, which was posted last week.
Thank you very much. Do any board members have any procedural questions before we move to the next item? Seeing none. We have an agenda. I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to take a look at. A motion to approve the agenda is in order.
So move.
Moved by Director Lane. Oh, excuse me. Moved by Director Wieskamp and seconded by Director Eccles. Pardon me. Please call the roll on that motion.
Yes, Madam President. Director Rosario,
Aye.
Madam President Corbett,
Aye.
Director Wasby,
Aye.
Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
and Director Lane.
Aye.
It's unanimously approved.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Do we have any public comments at this time?
Yes, Madam President, we have one speaker on the line, Christopher Newley, and we also have a public comment that was sent via email. What would you like
Okay.
to have?
Thank you very much. Why don't we go ahead and have Mr. Newey make his comments since he's here live?
Yes, he is. Chris?
Thank you. Board of Directors, President Corbett, General Manager Doyle. My name is Chris Newey, President of ASME Local 2428, who the labor union that represents a majority of the classifications at the East Bay Regional Park District. As you all are probably aware, Alameda County and Contra Costa County daily COVID cases are at an all-time high. They're almost double where they were at in the peaks we saw in July. And you know, with the recent holidays, I don't expect the current peaks to be going down anytime soon. With that in mind, I just wanted to remind you what you're asking your frontline workers to do. Many of the public that visits the park wear masks, but we still have a large amount of people who refuse to wear masks while they're out in public. We still have nice folks that approach park staff to get information, but don't seem to have ever gotten figured out what 6 feet is, coming really close and, you know, putting staff at risk, making us really uncomfortable, putting us in very awkward positions. With that in mind, you know, we're still cleaning the facilities. We're still handling the garbage, which all has a small amount of risks to it too. we still have two safety issues that we've been bringing up, that we brought up several times. One being the vehicle sharing. We brought it up many times. We still haven't seen any resolution to this issue. No change in protocols, no message from upper management directing staff to handle themselves in any different way than they've already been handling themselves. So, but the other issue we brought up early on during COVID, and we've seen no movement on this either. And I think the second issue is especially important during the spike. The districts allowed employees to go get COVID tested during work time, but they have to use their FF care or their FF sick leave to do so. And one of the reasons why this is a big problem is, for one, if I'm going to go and use my leave that's guaranteed to me by law to go get tested, and then I end up being positive, I've just used the leave that I needed to have to now go on, be sick. So there's almost a it's almost disincentivizing employees getting tested, where if they could just get tested on a reasonable basis for amount, I would say management could decide if I could get tested on a regular basis, I'm ensuring the safety of my coworkers. I'm ensuring the safety, it's making all of us safer. And it's an issue that's district safety, district-wide safety. And it's really disheartening to see that there hasn't been any kind of movement on this, that the district's only response is you can only use the leaves that are there for you. So thank you for your time, and hopefully you'll direct management to look at these issues and see if we can get the district safer all around. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newey. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate the work of you and the other frontline essential workers who are out there in the parks. We do appreciate you. I do remember the general manager responding to you at the last meeting that he would be looking into the vehicle sharing situation. And I know we continue to look at the other issues on your behalf. And I did see District Council, I believe she would like to weigh in. District Council Carol Victor.
Thank you, President Corbett. Carol Victor, District Council. Just a very brief comment, since this is public comment. Cal OSHA just came out with emergency regulations. They do address testing on work time. So we will be discussing this quite soon with ASME Local 2428 and making recommendations.
Yes, and this will be probably part of your report under item C as well.
I can give a brief update on the new emergency regulations that Cal OSHA adopted.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that very much. Do we have any other public comments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Madam President, we did receive a public comment via email, and I'm going to read it into the record. And it says, "Dear Board of Directors, I am submitting this public comment regarding agenda item number 2B. As a confidential legal assistant, I am part of a very small group of employees at the Park District that make up the confidential group. I take pride in being a part of this group and am proud of the work that I do to support the General Manager's office, in particular, the legal department and the Park District as a whole. My comment today is not to urge the board to accept or reject the class and comp study. Rather, it is to acknowledge the Board of Directors' demonstrated commitment to its employees, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. As we have seen across America, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced organizations to lay off and furlough millions of employees, many of whom have lost access to medical benefits. Our board, however, has elected not to take a similar approach. The The board's action has confirmed its pledge to maintaining the Park District's valuable workforce and ensuring the health and safety of its employees and public. Public agencies, including the Park District, will likely face difficult financial uncertainty in the coming years. I am optimistic that this board and management will adopt prudent policies that will help us out of this difficult period while preserving the long-term fiscal health of the agency and upholding its commitment to the Park District workforce. Sincerely, Becky Payne, Confidential Legal Assistant.
Thank you very much for reading that, Madam Clerk, and thank you, Ms. Bang, for your comments. They're much appreciated. Thank you. And we appreciate you too. Any other public comments?
No, Madam President.
Okay, well then our next item will be, sorry, I'm just making sure I don't skip over this. Our next item is, which I, as you know, I have done before. So very important. Our next item is item C. It is our, under our special update, excuse me, item C, our special update from the general manager on the status of the East Bay Regional Park District during this emergency for COVID-19. Mr. General Manager, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. It's a very critical time, obviously, for all Americans and across the world with this incredible surge in COVID. And we take to heart very seriously the comments from the union president today. I do want to comment on one thing. I have had conversations with senior staff on the vehicle sharing, and I know that those discussions have been coming forward, and there have been discussions on this issue. As far as the testing leave, that's something that we will certainly look at as far as the new OSHA rules, and I will have Carol Victor come in a minute to discuss the current information we have. As stated by other staff, and just in the news today, over 20 million Americans are out of work. Some of those are running out of their leave, their unemployment benefits, and we're all hopeful that the Congress will act to do something to help unemployed workers in the states and local agencies. Nevertheless, we are continuing to do our job to be a benefit to a lot of those people who are out of work when we at the district are protecting jobs and providing that employment. It is a challenge for our staff, and we know that, and we are very proud of what the staff has done in the field to safely follow protocols and provide that service. The board is keenly aware of the public's response to our parks being available by the surveys and polling that we've done, including for the first time, the importance that parks play in getting outdoors to mental health, something that is frequently overlooked. And I'm very pleased to see that response from the public. We would not have that response if the staff wasn't doing their best to stay safe and keep our parks open. So again, my sincere appreciation. It was my whole family's appreciation at Thanksgiving, giving thanks to the safety of our staff that we've seen and the response to having parks open, and the gratitude we all feel for keeping our families safe and keeping our parks open. On other notes, I'd also want to comment that per the direction we have reported to the board, Contra Loma and Shadow Cliffs are now open on a limited basis for park use for walking, hiking, fishing. That includes the use consistent with the health department's protocols of non-group picnicking in our parks. So I really want to thank the management team and the staff for adhering to those protocols and still providing additional opportunities. Other areas we'd like to do, we are still moving extremely cautiously, and so we will keep the board very apprised of any changes. But the comments we made and of Jim O'Connor and his team were based on the current information. I did note that in the East Bay, a great deal of concern that our hospital beds are being filled. In addition to any actual outbreak or numbers with COVID, a big driver, of course, is the ability to treat people from this terrible virus. So we're watching closely. Any day could be a change in what the health departments or further shutdowns by the governor, which is also being speculated that there will be more that way. We will adhere to and follow all of the health protocols to keep our staff and the public who use our parks as safe as we possibly can. It is our number one priority. So I do want to ask Chief Legal Counsel to give us any further updates we have on any new regulations from the Cal OSHA. And so, Carol, if you would please do that.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Carol Victor, District Counsel. The Cal OSHA adopted emergency regulations, I believe on the 20th, that have gone into effect as of yesterday. The new regulations require every employer to have a COVID prevention plan or program. The good news with the Park District, when we've looked at the regulations, our operational manual contains most of what Cal OSHA requires. So, but there are a few areas where we'll have to modify our program. Just generally in the area of notifications to employees at the workplace, some return to work criteria. We've done an inspection, COVID inspection of every work site in the district. We will we'll have to make that a periodic requirement. So that will be a continuing obligation to do those inspections. And there is, it requires, Cal OSHA's regulations require the Park District to allow employees who've been exposed at work to get tested on work time. And so we will be addressing that and some of the other requirements in the Cal OSHA regulations with our bargaining units.
Thank you. I think that's helpful to know, and I think it helps to respond to some of the questions today. And just as a reminder, although our COVID labor management task force with our two board members are not meeting as frequently, that is still the forum to bring items up and to have follow-up when necessary. And I know that Deputy GM Alvarez has made it clear if there's a need to meet more frequently or ad hoc, we will do that. So that is still the right forum to address these things as they come up. And as you can tell from Chief Legal Counsel's comments, we just were given the notice on the new OSHA rules, and already we've reviewed and are responding appropriately to that review. So thank you very much, Carol and staff, for doing that. The last item also is kind of addressed today, and that's the challenge of getting full compliance from such a diverse user group in our parks to get everybody to keep our park safe for themselves, their families, and our staff. And I'm very happy to report that our incredibly talented public affairs is about to release, in collaboration with other park agencies throughout the Bay Area, a new set of public announcements to be played, and they are really, really great. They show park workers, park rangers from several other agencies around the Bay Area with an appeal to users to help keep themselves and the staff safe. So it's a united effort. We're just a part of that, and we will show those videos at the next board meeting. They're still being edited, but there are a series of the same message from everything from a minute to a half a minute to even in shorter, so we can get these played on the airwaves. And again, I want to thank our great partner, Doug McConnell, and his team, who knows the parks around the Bay Area so well and the people who work there. So very happy to get additional messaging on 6 feet, masks, etc. Remember, people are working in those parks to keep those parks open. So I'm very, very happy to continue. I don't know of any other agency who has frankly spent more money or done more work to get the messaging out on this, and really want to thank the very creative public affairs team that frequently takes the lead across the Bay Area to collaborate with other agencies. And I think it'll be very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. So that is my report. Wishing everybody good health and safety. Hope you all, including all the staff, figured out a way to share Thanksgiving with families, but do it in very tiny family groups and do it safely. This is still a challenge. I do want to say, I do believe, I think it was reported today or yesterday, we have a 4th vaccine on the way. So we're really looking at now, how do we get the distribution out of the federal government? And I just will say that help is on the way, the cavalry's coming, and everybody needs to cooperate on convincing people to get their vaccines when they're available, because that is so critical to keeping everybody safe. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager, and thank you for those great words in support of our staff, who we all know are working extra hard this year. Director Lane, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to report how law-abiding the park visitors were that I saw this weekend at John Sutter Shoreline and the observation pier. Because of course, I'm always checking it out the way everyone is, but it was like 99% compliance with masks on, and that included all of the bicyclists that I saw. So I was really impressed with the way people were taking it to heart on the post-Thanksgiving weekend.
Thank you very much, Director Lane. We have a lot of responsible people doing responsible things, as they should. Director Rosario.
Yes, thank you. Do we have an update on number of assessments of employees?
Yes, we do. I don't have that today, but we will provide that.
Okay, great, thank
We're
you.
doing it every week or sooner. That comes from Pete DeQuincy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments for the GM? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. GM. All right, the next item is under C, number 2, presentation of board accomplishments for 2020. We have prepared a little slideshow. Thank you very much, Catherine, for assisting me on this. So we all know it's been a tough and challenging year. And on behalf of the board of directors, I wanted to give them a big thank you and take a moment to reflect and recognize the board's good work as policymakers who support the hundreds of employees, frontline, rank and file, and management who kept our beloved district operating at a high level all during this year. Next slide, please. Let's start where the tough part of this year began. Shelter in place was declared in March, and the board of directors responded by declaring an emergency to address the COVID pandemic. We authorized public funds. We established our first priority as keeping employees safe. And we, as a board, participated in activities along with staff and rank and file in ways we had not in the past, in attendance at the Emergency Operations Center and the COVID-19 Labor Task Force. Next slide, please. Good governance is a stabilizing force for the public, especially in a time of emergency. And the board stepped up and adhered to Governor Newsom's executive order to continue to provide public access and transparency by going digital. It was not easy at first, but with the help of a superb team led by our clerk's office, Yolanda Burial Knight and Sharon Clay, and our AGM, Deborah Ocker, and her amazing team of technology professionals, we learned new skills and we carried on. The board took the role of providing good policy direction in support of all Park District employees very seriously. We authorized emergency administrative leave in advance of the federal legislative action, ensuring that employees who are unable to work would be able to continue to be compensated. We also authorized additional COVID sick leave in the amount of $30,000 in advance of the Families First program. And we provided all employees a balance of 80 hours of sick leave as part of the Families First program. We wanted to make sure we supported all of our workers during this tough time. We also continued on the path of good social policy. Next slide, please. As you know, the board passed a resolution denouncing racism and standing in solidarity with Black people, Indigenous people, and all people of color. We supported ensuring that our parks were free to everyone during this challenging time, and we wanted to ensure that the essential services for outdoor physical and mental health resources were available to all. We also supported the free virtual environment education program. So even though a lot of our students didn't have an opportunity to spend time on field trips this year, they were able to continue with their environmental education through digital means. We continued to uphold the public's trust through our environmental ethic. We heal the parks by continuing to advance the policy and the funding on sustainable non-toxic weed abatement practices. We authorized public funds of $13.4 million for restoration projects such as Bay Point, McCosker Creek, Coyote Hills, and the Hayward Marsh. We adopted board resolutions to advance science-based climate legislation. We appreciate the work of the Legislative Committee and the many state bills, state Senate and Assembly bills that were supported, allowing for regional climate adaptation planning groups, career pathways and climate resiliency grant programs, California sequestration and climate resiliency project registry, climate resilience science advisory team, the California specific climate change assessment, and on the federal level, supporting, of course, resolutions for the American Public Lands and Water Climate Solutions Act, something that the Park District and the hard work of our general manager and many others saw through fruition in support for those funds this year. We authorized, executed, and extended key contracts for important restoration and public access projects, like the Dumbarton Quarry Campground, the Hayward Marsh Restoration, Encinal Beach, Tidewater, Coyote Hills, the Sanitary Sewer System Management Plan, McCosker Creek, Contra Loma Swim Lagoon Repair, Del Valle Visitor Center exhibits, Coyote Hills Restoration, and the Public Access Project. We continued to move ahead and we're steadfast on our board priorities. We funded and authorized the hiring of a diversity, equity consultant to conduct an organizational assessment that addresses the need to ensure that our workforce reflects the communities we serve at all levels and embraces a culture of belonging and inclusion. Also, through the board's participation at the Workforce Diversity Committee, we advocated for the development and implementation of a new implicit bias training for all of our employees. And we brought forward the findings of the annual EEO report with a report to the full board of directors. We authorized over $9 million for open space acquisition. We're about to accept the completion of the classification and compensation study. We've advanced diversity, equity, inclusion, and authorized $430,000 for land use and trail planning for public access and recreation. The board continued looking forward in policy direction as well, expanding public lands by over 1,000 acres this year. The board authorized the completion of 6 acquisitions at 6 park or trail units, preserving an additional 188.76 acres of open space for resource protection and recreational access. The board also authorized staff to enter into contracts to purchase an additional 754.47 acres of open space to expand 4 different parks. We plan for fiscal health, creating a 2.7 million recession smoothing fund. We authorized 1 million in pension liability paydown, and we authorized 22.4 million in capital infrastructure projects. We also embarked on a recruitment for a smooth transition for a new general manager. Board members, I just wanted to say we had an opportunity to shine this year, uphold a strong and cohesive and consistent governing body. We had the opportunity to appoint a new board member in Elizabeth Eccles. We had the successful election and re-election of 3 board members, and we allowed for transparency and governance through public hearings and meetings while evolving to an online model. All of that despite a pandemic, 100-year events, and historical wildfires and issues with air quality as well. So to the board, I just wanted to say, I want to thank you for a tough year, but an important year. We were able to shine despite the challenges, but we would have not been able to do any of this except for the fact of our exceptional, hardworking, and committed staff, our general manager, his management team, and all of our frontline essential workers. So we thank you. And I stop for a moment just once again to thank the board for being steady hands, for keeping calm and governing on. So congratulations, and we look forward to an even better year in 2021. Thank you all very much. Any questions or comments?
Thank you
Alright.
for making it such a great year, just by telling us all about it. So thank you, Ellen.
I thought you'd like to have some good news after a
A
tough year.
little perspective is always good.
Some good things did happen.
Yes.
So thank you all very much. And with that, the next item is the consent calendar. Board members, I know you've all had a chance to take a look at it. Are there any items anyone would like to remove from the consent calendar? No?
No,
Did
there
it-
were no items that needed to be removed, but we did have some comment.
I am going to ask that we remove item B and to allow for us to provide a Brown Act statement in compliance with this action. So members, on item D, the resolution approving the appointment of Carol Victor as interim general manager of the East Bay Regional Park District. We do have a Brown Act requirement statement, which I will read to all of you. The Brown Act requires that prior to taking final action on the salary schedules or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits for a local agency executive, the legislative body must orally report a summary of a recommendation during the meeting in which the final action is to be taken. Item D of the consent calendar is a recommendation that the Board of Directors appoint Carol Victor as interim general manager. During this assignment, Ms. Victor will be compensated at step B of MG 11 salary range on the management salary schedule, which is equal to $23,013.46 per month. Ms. Victor shall also continue to receive the same across-the-board benefits approved by the board for the Park District's unrepresented management employees. When her service as interim general manager is completed, Ms. Victor will return to her current role as Assistant General Manager, Legal Risk Division, District Council, which we all appreciate. You promise?
Thank you.
All right. With that, that is the statement that is required by the Brown Act. And we can, I guess, move back to the consent calendar since there's no other items to pull. Director Rosario.
I just wanted to make a comment congratulating Carol Victor on this assignment. And I just wanted to let her know that myself and the rest of my colleagues on the board have complete faith that you will carry us through a smooth transition. And I think you were definitely the right choice. And we have the utmost confidence that you can do the job. So thank you so much for stepping up.
Well, thank you, Director Rosario. Those are very kind words. I really appreciate all of the support of the Board of Directors. Huge shoes to fill with Bob Doyle leaving. And thank you for the vote of confidence. It's, as I've said before, it's a great honor and I feel very lucky. Thank you.
Thank you, IGM, almost. And thank you, Director Rosario, for those comments. I think ditto on behalf of all the rest of the board members. Thank you, and we appreciate you. Madam Clerk has her hand up.
Yes, Madam President, we did have one one comment on item K, authorization to increase the contract limit.
Okay, well, let's take public comment before we vote on the.
And that is Chris Newey. Chris, are you still on the line?
I am.
You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Londa.
You're
Board
welcome.
of Directors, President Corbett, General Manager, Chris Newey, President AFSCME, Local 2428. So the reason why I'm bringing up this item, or speaking on this item, is in recent months, watching the Board of Directors meetings, I've heard countless project managers, park planners, and other staff that deal with contracts talk about the benefits of competitive bidding and how, especially this last year, that the prices that we've been getting for competitive bids on projects has it worked out really well for the district. And then here we are approving additional funds to go to the Gordian Group for the kind of administration of the JOC job order contracting program, which has gone up exponentially every year. Every year, the district spends more money on the administration of the job order contract program. And it's, the increments it increases is way beyond inflation. So first off, when is the district going to do a cost analysis to see whether this program is truly beneficial? I mean, yes, the program using JOC sometimes can save times to, not go through the competitive bidding process. But when is a true analysis going to be done where you could look at project compared to like project and do a full analysis of the cost to see if we're really saving any money by using the job ordering contract program. Additionally, Meadow Darcy, vice president at the time of Local 2428, at one of the board finance meetings once asked, has a cost analysis ever been done to work out the cost of how much is going into these contracts and the program compared to what cost it would take for permanent staffing? At that time, there was a response that said there was a report that management had done that did that analysis. When the union asked for the district for a copy of that report, the response was no report exists. So once again, I believe the district should really be doing its due diligence, spending public funds and doing analysis on these kind of programs to see if they are truly cost effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newey. Can I ask a quick question? Don't we have, as part of that process, an analysis of the effectiveness and the cost savings? Haven't I heard that is something that is done as we use this JOC process? Oh, yes. Hello, AGM Kelchner.
Thank you, Director Corbett. Christina Kelchner, Assistant General Manager of Acquisition Stewardship and Development. You are correct, Director Corbett, that an analysis of the cost benefit of the program is part of the program. It has been done as part of our audit. I understand that Mr. Nui was saying he was not given a copy, so we'll have to look into that. I don't know what kind of a formal report was done, but that audit and that analysis is done on a regular basis. I believe on an annual basis.
Yes, thank you very much. I do remember hearing about that. So thank you very much for confirming that. And Director Lane had her hand up, and also District Council Victor. Did you have an answer to that too?
I just wanted to, from a legal perspective, job order contracting is considered competitive bidding. The way that we do, we bid out the contracts does count as competitive bidding. So I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Director Lane?
Yes, I wanted to make a short comment on one other consent item.
Oh, yes, please.
So are we done talking about the JOC?
Are we done on that? Is there anything else, AGM Kelchner, you'd like to add?
I would just like to remind the board that the job order contracting program is a procurement program only. So it is independent from the district's decisions about what to contract out versus what to have staff do. So it doesn't change our process or our decisions about that. It's just that once we decide to contract out work, we can use the job order contracting as one of the alternatives to meet the competitive bidding requirements.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other? Okay, thank you so much. Director Lane, yes, please, which item?
I just wanted to say briefly on F, which has to do with several steps in moving the Iron Horse Trail north.
Oh, yes.
This is, it's a very modest item, but it's a huge step for us. And I want to appreciate Sean Dugan and other staff for negotiating with the county and Caltrans to move this trail up to Imhoff. And people started working on this trail in the mid-'80s. And this gap in the north is been a significant one. So I'm really pleased to see the steps that this item represents. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Yes, more good news. They do great work for sure. All right. If there are no other items on the consent calendar to discuss or to pull, a motion on the consent calendar is in order.
So move.
Moved by Director Lane and seconded by Director Rosario. Please call the roll on the consent calendar. I think you froze for a second there.
Yeah, my speakers went out for a minute. Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
Madam President Corbett.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimously approved.
Thank you very much. I want the board to know that we're running about 15 minutes ahead of schedule at the moment. So let's keep it up.
You're
And we've
never
also,
supposed to say anything about that.
it's okay.
No.
We'll be good.
Positive thinking. Come on.
Yes, positive thinking. So I would like to introduce the next item. It's item 2 under the executive and legislative division. It's the star of the show tonight, our first public hearing on our budget. And I would like to welcome back our general manager, Bob Doyle, who will introduce the first public hearing on our budget tonight. Thank you, Mr. GM.
Thank you very much. I do think it's very important for the public to have the opportunity to scrutinize our budget, and it is my obligation as the general manager to present you a balanced budget and to have a document that is highly readable and very transparent. And I want to first of all thank our very talented and dedicated finance department under the leadership of Deborah Ocker. This will be my last budget after my 10th year of being the general manager, and it's an honor to present this today. It has been quite a wild ride this year, as President Corbett pointed out, with a lot of the accomplishments of the district. as part of what we're dealing with this year is the uncertainty of many things. And part of that uncertainty is not just the continuing impact of the pandemic, but we don't know if there's going to be any relief from the federal government or the state government. The district has lost over $7 million in income just from services and charges and fees, and additional millions because of just costs that we have encumbered this year. I'm really happy with the board's support of the emergency orders to be able to keep things going and helping staff as well. But the reality is we don't know what we're facing with the economy. And what we do see so far is a very lopsided recovery in some areas, such as the stock market, but it's really an impact on the other end of the scale. So people with great wealth are doing really good. People who have their businesses open are very busy and doing pretty good. But people who've been forced, restaurant workers, restaurant owners, small businesses have really been impacted. And all of that makes people do their own decision making in where they spend their money and what they spend their money on. So I'm very happy that we have waived so many fees in the district, and we have helped our concessionaires, which I really think that's important. Most of our concessionaires do not make a lot of money, and they're hard to find and hard to keep. And it doesn't take much for them to decide we're not going to do that anymore, particularly on youth services, which I think is a critical element for the district. We've given direction to all the staff and all divisions to expect a more austere budget because we don't know the future. We can always add more later if we can afford it, but we don't know the bottom line yet. Last year we had over 24 positions, permanent FTEs. This year we're at half of that because we did ask the staff to really tighten their belt. And everybody had to get a haircut. Some of us need a haircut, but in the budget, we all are. We're all faced with the reality of an uncertain economic future, and we've already seen those impacts to some degree. We don't know if they'll get worse or better. We're all hopeful with the cavalry coming in Washington that things will be better. So I really want to emphasize that every senior manager reduced their budget requests by about half. So what you have before you is 12.5 FTEs. And that's after a lot of arm wrestling and a lot of difficulty. And so I just want the board to understand that it's been a challenge when we have a lot of growth still going on of opening these wonderful openings that President Corbett mentioned and Judge John Sutter Shoreline. A lot of things are still coming online, and we have to fund those staff positions. Nevertheless, we really tighten this budget with permanent positions. And it's the biggest reduction we've had in the last 5 years or more since recovering from the not so great recession. And I'm really proud of all the work that everybody did. I do want to comment on a couple I think are very important elements. First of all, in addition to the challenges of COVID, we've had one of the worst fire seasons that we've seen in the district since 1991, with lots of district parks impacted, particularly in the southern end of the district with the lightning fires. We have also had our fire crews out fighting smaller fires throughout. This includes Orinda, Moraga, Crockett, East Contra Costa, where they were on the line helping other firefighters put fires out outside of district property. Our helicopter crew had repeated drops of water, both in the southern area on our parks and outside, helping other jurisdictions and our neighbors. So it's been a very hard time for our fuels and our crews. So I am very pleased that we're adding additional employees to the fuels management crew. They right now will be serving as one crew, and that also is a COVID restriction as well, but we will have enough to actually do 2 crews should Chief Thiley figure out a way to do that. With transportation, it was also referenced earlier and things. So very pleased about that. I do want to just make a personal note about the Trails Cruise. I started as a temporary employee in 1973, cutting the fuel break in Tilden Park as a temporary employee. I had no idea if I'd get another job, but it was a really important skill I learned working for the district and helped me be more employable in the future. And I think it's really important with the amount of trails we have and the staff working so hard just to maintain the parks, the turf areas, the picnic areas, the pavement, that we step up and try to start to look towards permanent crews for maintaining our trails. They're now the highest use in the district. Many other recreations have dropped. Trail use has gone through the roof. And so I understand the concern by some, but I do think the importance of working with the Student Conservation Corps to bring more people into park work, whether they become permanent employees or work somewhere else. They will be people who have an understanding of the importance of parks and gain skills in doing so. It would, of course, be our hope, as it was mine in 1973, to get a permanent job and have those jobs available. But I think that it is really important to show the public that we're trying to keep up with trail maintenance, which we have fallen back on because of overgrowth and work there, because they do weed abatement in addition to trail work, and work in the long term to have the funding to prioritize permanent positions for trail maintenance. Excuse me. I just think that's really important, and I hope the board will still support that need and recognize that we've been in this place many times where we want to have more staff. This is not the year until we figure out where we're going to be economically and where your priorities are. But I do think it's important to have the two small crews and work with the Student Conservation Corps. And it is true, they bring people in from all over the country, not just locally, but we are working with them to encourage local employment to reflect our diversity in the East Bay. And Jim O'Connor's already having those conversations. Excuse me. So I just wanted to emphasize that. I also want to emphasize, and I understand the direction from the Finance Committee, that HR is extremely stressed and very important. We've added more employees. We've added more duties. We have more things going on. Hopefully we'll get through the comp and class, which has taken a great deal of work in HR to get through that process. But I wanted the board to know in context that in the last 5 years, we've added 4 new positions. And with the recommendations and the current staff recommendations, you would be up to 6 new positions. And if we add a third one, that would be 7 new positions. No other department in context with the size and scope has had that many new positions added. And I recognize the importance, but I also want the board to think that through, that we're also on an interim position with both an HR director and other staff in HR. We have had recent retirements or people leaving HR. And so we don't have full capacity, even within the existing budget, of permanent employees. And I do think it is important to look to the future that you're going to get a new HR manager, and they need to make some decisions about what the structure and the needs are in that department as well. So I would urge the board to stick with the 2 additional positions. If you want to add the third one, that's certainly your authority and discretion, but I wanted to express on behalf of staff how hard everybody worked to not get all the positions that they desired, but work with everybody. And the greatest number of new positions that are non-operational field positions is the HR department needed. But I do want to express that caution on the budget and on adding, 7, it would be 7 new positions in the last 5 years, permanent positions. So that is quite a great deal of growth. So With that, I just want to thank the board and thank the finance department. I know you have lots of questions on the budget, but I think I'm very proud to present this budget. I'm very proud that it's balanced, that we added new positions for new parks and new facilities. If you look at the charts, the majority of those are union positions in the field. The administrative positions are primary HR and one other position. So all that information is available, and I wish you the greatest goodwill in getting through the budget process and serving the public and keeping our promises for all of our great projects that we're still doing during COVID. So on behalf of the staff, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. GM. And we're now going to hear from our AGM of Finance, Deborah Ocker, who's been quite busy and putting together a, well, it's not the happiest of budgets, but it's a balanced budget and a solid budget. So thank you very much, Deborah. We're very interested in hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, President Corbett. Deborah Ocker, Assistant General Manager of Finance and Management Services. And I am happy to introduce the 2021 proposed budget. I'm going to bring up my presentation. And if you can all see that, I want to thank the General Manager for his great introductory words. And we're going to now kind of drill down into the details of the budget. And with me today, I have Deborah Spalding, our Assistant Finance Officer. She's going to do the second half of the presentation with me. And our new budget manager, Christina Crosby, who finished her first budget 100% remotely. So these are very, very strange times. And we are fortunate to put forward a balanced budget that has no cuts to services and no cuts to staffing. So the general manager did mention that we had reductions. We had reductions in the growth that we've seen in the last several years. And this budget does focus on the things of importance, including our COVID response, public access, our fuels management program, environmental restoration. I have fuels management on here twice because it's so important. Infrastructure program, facilities improvements, and our commitments to the voters. I also, in our budget, after the general manager's message, we do list out a lot of accomplishments in our budget. And President Corbett went through several of them in her presentation, but in the budget document, pages 45 to 54, we try to list all the things that we've been able to accomplish during the prior year, and that will be updated and include everything that's happened that we didn't get in there through the end of the year. So our budget process, as you're familiar with, it is a multi-month process here at the district. We do meet with the board of directors 5 or 6 times during the first half of the year for the board workshops. In August, we develop our revenue projections for the future year. We use the county assessors information and our economic consultants to help us with those. August is the month that we crunch numbers and we figure out what the needs are of the district. All the divisions from the bottom to the top put in a budget request of needs. And then we review those in the fall and create this draft proposed budget. The draft proposed budget was delivered to the board of directors on November 18th for their review, and it was posted on the district's website on November 19th. And we do try to practice an open and transparent process. We have several public meetings. We have the Finance Committee meeting was on Monday, November 23rd. The Park Advisory Committee was also that Monday at 4 p.m. We had an all staff meeting that we invited members of the district staff to have a presentation of the budget. That was on November 18th. And then here we are today for the introduction and the first public hearing of the budget. And then on December 15th, we'll be back to request adoption. So our budget balancing principles is really some of the core policies in the master plan, and they do help us through things like this time of economic uncertainty. The number one principle is to create a financially sustainable organization, and that really has been helpful to keep this district going forward in challenging times. Our principles also address climate change, the safety of our employees, well-being, and training. The different legal and regulatory mandates, a lot of them having to do with COVID this year, other state and federal mandates, including permit requirements, are part of our principles. We also have a lot of innovations, as you'll see through this budget. And then also maintaining our assets, our facilities, our infrastructure, and our natural infrastructure. So as we put together our budget, we're always looking to the core of the Park District mission. And then as part of the offset of the mission statement, there are vision statements. And those are listed out in our master plan. And that's where we are developing our performance goals from those types of items in our vision statement. So before I go into the numbers, I'm going to walk us through some of the narrative of the things that are included in some of our goals and objectives that are included in this 2021 budget. And they are focused on these items that come from the master plan. So again, we are still in COVID, and the work that we do, we're continuing to develop protocols, as you've already heard today several times, so that we can keep providing these important park services to the public and maintain the safety of our employees. We will continue to promote the police department values of safety, service, and stewardship, and train all of our police personnel on procedural justice practices. We are additional funding for our hazardous tree program, continuing our public information safety campaign. And we're hoping to have a swim season this year, and our lifeguards are a big, huge part of that, and swim lessons. So also enhancing our visitors' relationship to nature. We have, we'll continue with our virtual education programming, serving the public and schools during COVID-19 and probably beyond. We are going to embark on a district-wide trails inventory of our natural surface trails and start to update our mapping in our database, continue to develop interpretive signage, and listen to park users via community surveys to understand their interests. Ensuring the fiscal health of the Park District, we have a program of engaging with our local legislators, seeking to secure funding through grants and resource-related bonds. We've been very successful in that area, getting some really great appropriations for our Brickyard project at East Shore, McLaughlin East Shore State Park. Our Del Val State Park has received some appropriations, and also the McCosker Creek restoration. So we're very thankful for that support. We are also examining new options for reducing our unfunded liabilities and addressing our future needs. And sometimes people say, what are the unfunded liabilities? Those are things like our long-term pension costs, where we've set up a pension trust, our long-term maintenance of our facilities and infrastructure, where the board has adopted a funding policy for that program. We do set aside money annually for fuels and vegetation management. And then we also are identifying other things in our parks that have these unfunded needs, including our aquatic facilities, our other lakes and ponds and natural infrastructure, and the capital projects that we don't have quite enough bond money or haven't received enough grants for. And then of course there's climate change. So with that, we will continue our Measure WW capital bond program. We plan on issuing our next tranche of those bonds, with a portion being green bonds, as they were in our 2017 issue. And then looking long range at our financial planning and anticipating future costs for land acquisition and capital programs and opening of new parks. So climate change is a big part of our work plan, and the land acquisition program is a huge safety net for climate change. It really does provide carbon sinks. We're working on our San Francisco Bay Trail risk assessment to identify vulnerabilities that are addressing the impacts of sea level rise. Continue to plan, maintain our habitat restoration. And then looking at our telecommuting
No,
technology
she doesn't have them on.
so much.
Please mute your mics.
And then, access to public park lands and outreach to unrepresented groups. We have a strong ADA program. We're going to be working at Don Castro. We're also going to be continuing to update our self-evaluation plan. This year, we had an opportunity to repave all of Shoreline Drive. So that was great. Improvements. We're going to continue to collaborate with our local partners on the San Leandro Creek Trail, an extension from Hagenberger to 98th Avenue. And then we're continuing our diversity, equity, and inclusion reviews by initiating a community equity impact assessment that will review the distribution of programs and services across the diverse communities we serve. And then continuing our multilingual exhibits in different parks. A couple more slides on this, but reviewing our recruitment, retention, and other employment conditions, policies, and practices with a goal of a diverse and inclusive workforce, extending mandatory training on fairness in hiring and interviewing, continuing to prioritize employee safety, and conducting a safety gap analysis of Park District facilities for compliance with OSHA, especially as it relates to air quality response requirements. And then balancing environmental considerations with outdoor recreation. We do plan on having a few openings this year. One here is our newest family campground at Dumbarton Quarry that we've been waiting for. That will open in 2021. In the last presentation of this project, the project manager stated there will be hundreds of trees out here. So even though that looks like a construction site, it will look a lot greener when it's finished. Continuing work on our land use plans, which is really how we get to developing and planning and opening new parks. And then looking at our turf and preparing for future drought by installing drought resistant turf and improving our irrigation systems, specifically at Miller Knox, but in other locations as well. And as the general manager spoke about, establishing a second small trails crew to really work on vegetation management and maintaining our natural surface trails. Restore, preserve, protect the scenic, natural, and cultural resources of the district. A main core part of that is our fuels management program. Also conducting the feasibility study for the restoration options at Jewel Lake. And then providing more reliable water sources for our livestock grazing programs. And implementing new practices for our vegetation management in support of the elimination of glyphosate in developed areas. So those are a narrative of a lot of the things that are on our work plan for this year. Some of them are carried forward from 2020 due to COVID, but a pretty robust plan of moving forward throughout all the different divisions of the Park District. And so now I think I'll just go right into the numbers quickly. It's not, it's an unusual year when you get to present a $258 million budget wearing your slippers. It's been a very crazy year. As the general manager mentioned, we have a balanced budget, but it's, there's uncertain times. And so when you look at our total district-wide resources of $237 million, it is reduced from the prior year by 7.5%, right? Just our growth has shrunk. We do have some growth in taxes and assessments on the regular property tax side. Our charges and fees and charges, remember we reduced our budget by $7.2 million in the current year. In 2021, we still are only at park capacity, so we have a reduction of 2.2 million from what our regular programs would be. Contracts and leases are about the same at 2.7 million. Interest, you know, the Fed raised the rates and then they kind of crashed down to zero again. So our interest and donations are down by 28% in the 2021 year. And other resources, which really make up all of our transfers between funds, is also reduced by 7%. So let's look at the revenues in a little bit more detail. As I mentioned, the property tax is one of our largest revenue sources. And it's actually, we have growth in our general property tax of 4.1%. And that's because half of the year's levy was done before COVID hit. And then the other half, we do still see in the real estate market that that real estate hasn't been hit yet. So we feel like we can move forward with 4% growth in our properties tax. And then the GEO bonds are the taxes that we pay on our WW bonds, and that actually dropped. So that brought the percentage of overall taxes and assessments down. And our other component of that category are assessments and community facility fees, which is Measure FF and landscape and lighting districts. The next category of the charges for services, as I mentioned, our park fees are down. We do in this budget, we estimate about 50% capacity of our normal fees. We will be going back and charging parking fees and park use fees starting in January. But the other things like swimming and camping and other programs and concessions, we budgeted at 50% of normal for this year just because of social distancing and the uncertainty that's out there. As I mentioned, our contracts and our grazing and our leases are about the same. And then interest is down by 3 million in this budget. So here you can see the significance of property tax in our district-wide revenue sources, and then charges for services are the next slice. Now we'll move to the spending side of the budget. So in appropriations, also we have, we have appropriations are down by just under 7% as well. This includes our transfers. And our operating funds are show a little bit of growth, right? That's where we have our salaries and our benefits. And we do budget for 100% of our authorized positions. And so there is some growth in that area, plus the new positions that the general manager talked about. Our projects are down from last year. In this budget, it's 27.5 million. Last year, it was 41.7. And debt service has a lower requirement of payments, so that's down. And internal services and special revenues are about the same as last year. So we are able to grow this year, but it's less than in the prior years. And we really are holding the line, because usually when an economic recession hits, it takes a couple of years to get to the local government level. So here on our appropriations side, you can see that the majority of our costs are personnel costs. We are a service industry. And so it's about 140 million. It's up by 3% from the prior year is our personnel costs. Supplies and services district-wide are up by just under 10%. There's some, and then our capital outlay is about 4 million, and that's down. We typically, sometimes we put aside extra money for land acquisition, which was not necessary in this year. We had enough in our capital budgets. So that's one of the reasons why that didn't grow much. And then in the other areas, you can see a smaller percentage of our appropriations in those categories. So since personnel costs are our largest part of our budget of what we're doing, let's talk about our authorized personnel. So the proposed budget does include 12.9 additional new FTEs in the base budget. In your In your report that's in your packet, we mentioned that the Finance Committee did request that we amend this and add an additional FTE to the Human Resources Department. And I had some board members ask for more detail on that. So I have a couple slides specifically on the Human Resources Department. But here we are adding some new staff for the managing for the reduction or the elimination of the use of glyphosate. We made that a priority. Usually we have park openings listed in the budget, and then we make sure that we provide staff for any of those new park openings. This year, we call them pipeline positions. This year, we were able to defer any of those that were needed to the future because we didn't see new areas really opening up. The ones that we do see coming online, we had already put staffing in this 2020 budget or previous budgets, like Dunbarton Quarry Campground. We already put staffing in there for that. You know, we have enough staffing in for Concord Hills in its land bank status. We have staffing in there for Judge John Sutter. So those were already included in prior budgets. And then remember, this is our first year of implementing Measure FF. And Measure FF did continue with providing a lot of staffing in the Measure FF boundary of the district. And it also included 3 additional positions. And so 1.5 full-time equivalents is in the stewardship department, and 1.5 is in the operations department related to Measure FF. And then here's a little bit of a breakdown of where those new positions come or are being added. And so we have the majority of the staff are, you know, field related positions, represented positions, a couple for the police, or, you know, 1.25 for the police association. The majority of the other are represented by Ask Me Local 2428. And then in the unrepresented category, there was 1 human resources position. And then we would, if we add in the Finance Committee recommendation, that will add 1 more to that. You can see it better on this slide here. This is broken down by division. And so in the operations division, a lot of those positions, remember, we're taking some of the 9-month positions and we're upgrading them to 12-month positions. So we have several of those incorporated into the requests. Also, there were some park service attendants, which are now reclassified as park service workers. So we did those types of upgrades. And then in the public safety division, we have the 3 fuels crew members that the general manager mentioned. We have a police services technician and 0.25 of a police officer. The acquisition, stewardship, and development department are stewardship positions that were allocated from Measure FF. In the management or finance and management services division, there is 1 additional information services technician. And then legislative and executive and legislative are the human resources positions, which the proposed budget included 2, and the Finance Committee has recommended an additional HR. So for the just to give you a little more context of human resources, before our former chief of human resources left, she went through and did a functional analysis, an organizational assessment of what the needs were, and they have been working on, kind of downsizing, right-sizing some of the positions. And so there's quite a bit of movement in human resources in this budget to kind of implement that, that analysis. And in the budget request, there were 3 positions submitted, but 2 made it through the cuts. As the general manager said, we had to cut just under $1 million out of all of the requests. And so, adding the additional position will help with some immediate needs related to labor relations, with investigations, and kind of enable us to shift from reactive to proactive. Those would be some of the benefits. And here's a chart that, just does kind of show you the changes that were made. So these were really, put together through a pretty detailed analysis to try to right size the positions in the department and add some additional resources to it. So if you look overall at the history of the district, we have been very fortunate. We have grown. The thin line there is our park acreage and how it has been growing over the years. And our staffing has been growing. We've been very fortunate to add, over 20 new full-time equivalents over the last many years. And this year, we're just, as we mentioned, we're just holding tight so that we don't get ahead of ourselves before we know how this is, all this uncertainty is going to play out. So with that, I think in your book, it does highlight some of the larger items that are included in this budget. We've talked about some of it already, so I won't go into too much detail, but our paving program is really important. We have about $3 million appropriated in total. $1 million is new money coming in through our 553 infrastructure program. Also, our major maintenance program is getting funded. These amounts were actually funded in the prior year as one-time budgets, and here we're requesting that these be ongoing budgets. We've been working a lot on our bridges and our piers, so additional funding for those programs. Hazardous trees I mentioned, and our insurance costs continue to kind of go up. And then we talked about the two small trails crews, additional equipment. We've been buying lots of really great mowers and equipment to manage fuels and weed abatement. Measure FF has funding towards the Bay Trail extension that will go towards Point Melody. And then our infrastructure, grazing infrastructure has 200,000. I mentioned the lawn rehabilitation and the diversity, equity, inclusion assessment. So those are some of the big items that are in there. I'm going to turn it over to Deborah Spalding now, and she's going to walk you through some of the second volume of our budget. She has maybe about 15 slides at the most, 10 or 15 slides that she'll walk you through right now.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm getting this strange message that I cannot use my camera. Never gotten this message before, and I'm wearing a jacket and everything, so I apologize to not be on camera. Oh, the host has asked me to start my video. Okay.
Well, thank you for being here, Devin. Thank you, Devin, for that great report.
I don't know why I can't start my camera, but I'll just proceed on. So I'm going to be presenting volume 2 of our proposed budget, and that is our project and program budget. And it's divided into 2 sections. In the front half, we have about 110 projects that each get a separate page, a photo, a detailed description, and funding status. And those are projects where it's about $100,000. Eventually, we expect it to be $100,000 or greater. And it will result in an asset at a specific location. Then in the back part of the book, we have the programs. And so that's groupings of projects all together. So there are 10 programs, and in that there are about over 300 projects. And that's in areas like fire prevention, services for underrepresented groups. Next slide, please. So as finance people, we like to, try to look at things in groupings. And so when you have almost 500 projects, how do you break that down? Well, one way is to look at it by funding source. And so this pie is showing you what funding sources we have in all of those 400 projects, almost $400 million worth of projects in that book. And if you look at the right-hand corner, we've got all of our bond funds, and that adds up to about 21%. And if you add in the Measure CC and Measure FF funds, you can see that we have almost 30% of our project funding comes from taxes that voters have agreed to, pay additional money so that we can build these projects. And then on the left side, the big blue slice of pie and the little green wedge, you can see we get about a quarter of our project funding from grants. And the other sources, the other major sources are really district sources. So our general fund, our major infrastructure renovation and replacement fund, the MER, which is really general fund money that's been set aside for infrastructure replacement, and special revenue funds make up the remaining roughly 1/3. Next slide. And so then on the opposite side, the spending of the funds, we break it down by what type of projects we're doing. So starting at the top, about 4% of our projects are technology or equipment related. 30% are infrastructure. So that's things like utilities and facilities. About 15% of our projects are for land acquisition. 33% are for public access. So that's trails and staging areas and other park improvements that help the public to access our parks. And then lastly, 18% are for resource enhancement projects. It could be wetland restoration, creek restoration, or habitat improvement. Next slide. So we are appropriating $10.5 million into programs and projects this year. And so up at the top, the program appropriations, and I won't read through those all, but about 9.8 million in total is going into projects that are grouped as programs. And then down at the bottom, you can see the specific projects which are receiving funds. And so during the year, additional funding will be allocated to these projects, and those come to you at every board meeting pretty much. There will be some allocation of funds to a project. So what's happening as part of the budget process is really just those projects that happen to be ready or that there's a funding source available at this moment in time. But it's not any kind of reflection on how much money is going to be continuing to come in through the year. So project appropriations in this budget are for the gun club, $100,000. That's for the remediation of the gun club. $100,000 for the beginning of scoping the project to replace all the and repair the back timbers at Black Diamond Mines. Small funding available for the Peralta Oaks North project. That's from a project that's being closed, and there's just a little bit of money left over that's being transferred in. $350,000 for the Extend the Bay Trail at Point Mulati. That's Measure FF funding. And then some funding for Project at Point Isabel to restore and stabilize a certain part of that park. Next slide. And so now we have a few slides, just pictures and a little bit more detail about some of the projects that are going on in 2021. And this one is on page 93. If you want to follow along in your book, is Develop Brickyard Cove at McLaughlin East Shore State Park. And this project is fully funded. It's received a $5.2 million state grant appropriation. And it's going to construct an entry plaza with picnic sites, drinking fountains, trails, and plantings. Next slide. The Tassajara Creek Regional Trail. This is a section of the trail to Mount Diablo. It's currently estimated to be a $1.2 million project, and we have $150,000 from the Measure WW bond for that particular area. So this will develop a segment of the trail from Hillbrook Place to Wallace Ranch and then onto Windermere Parkway. This project at Don Castro Regional Recreation Area will upgrade the ADA parking and provide better access to the facility. And it's actually using ADA funds that the district sets aside every year for ADA upgrades. And so this particular project is going to be $400,000 and will improve routes. Thank you. The Contra Loma, this is a project that's been going on for several years to improve facilities there along the South Shore. So it's replacing the fishing dock and 2 chemical toilets as well as ADA improvements. Next slide. At Coyote Hills Regional Park, we are developing a service yard. This one has some district funds, but then also almost $1.5 million from our Coyote Hills Special Revenue Fund. And eventually this project will serve both the Coyote Hills Regional Park and the new Dumbarton Quarry Campground. And then the developed Doolittle Trail. This is a section of the Bay Trail that's being developed along the Martin Luther King Jr. Regional Shoreline. It's expected to cost $14 million in total. We have about 7.1 million secured, including 2 million in Measure CC, and the remainder coming from grants and transportation funds. So this will be a half-mile section of the Bay Trail running along the Doolittle Drive, and there will be a boat ramp and dock floats replaced as well. Another San Francisco Bay Trail project, Develop Martinez Bay Trails. This project is estimated to be $3.3 million. We have $285,000 from our Measure WW bonds. So we'll construct a 0.4 mile segment of the trail from the Nedjedli staging area to Berryessa Streets. Next slide. McCosker Creek project. This is at Sibley Volcanic Regional Preserve. And we have all $13.6 million secured for this project, with $3 million of it coming from district funds and the remainder from the state and from grants. And this is the largest creek restoration project ever undertaken by the Park District. And that's the last.
Thank you, Deb. I think this is our last slide, and we'll go to questions of board members, and we'll ask the board president to open the first public hearing and see if there are any comments or questions on our budget. And then we'll be back again on December 15th at a 1 o'clock start for adoption of the budget.
Thank you very much for the great presentations. Let's go ahead and open our public hearing on the budget. And do we have anyone who is waiting to speak on this item this evening, Madam Clerk? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear you. We can't hear you.
Today is not a good day for technology.
I know. Yesterday was bad too. Are you there, Madam?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are.
My speakers just went out. They just came back on. It is Technology Day. Are you going to speak?
Do we have any public comments on the hearing?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I was talking and then I was muting. Yes, Chris Newey did have a comment.
Okay, let's hear first
There
the
he
public
is.
comment, and then we'll open up questions and comments.
Okay.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. So yeah, once again, Board of Directors, General Manager, District Council. Chris Newey, President of ASME Local 2428. The addition, I'm speaking to the addition of the second Trails crew, which I've spoke to before. And I know we've had other ASME members speak on this too. We're heading into contract negotiations with the district, and the grievance violations on adding the second crew and not meeting all the contractual requirements that the language in Article 19 are already building up. We even have a new grievance after the general manager was speaking about the types of projects this crew would be working on. The crew's Article 19 says the projects should be repair and improvements and not general maintenance. Doing vegetation management along the sides of trails is a clear violation of the contract. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make is we're trying to bargain in good faith. And it's starting to become really clear that I'm not sure I can say the same thing for the district. We brought up concerns, we brought up problems, and the district still wants to move forward. If I can understand if taking on the risk of adding permanent employees is too great for this next year, that's a real concern. I understand, but adding a second crew when we already have an existing crew and program that's probably not meeting all the contractual requirements is already a problem. So we really can't support it for that reason. We also can't support it because this is our work. This is what rangers do. We do trail work. Or at least once upon a time, we did. I did trail work when I was a ranger. I was directed by my supervisor to go out and do vegetation management, do trail repairs. And we made time, we made it a priority, and we did it. If it's that big of a priority, direct your management to reprioritize trail repair as a higher priority. And then once again, not only are you contracting our work out, you're contracting our work out to people who don't even necessarily live in the area, where we have other youth programs that do live in the area. So there's just so many levels that the union in its current form, the union just cannot support. And we will move forward with, all of avenues we can to make sure that the contract we signed with the district is upheld to the highest level. And the fact that the board of directors are willing to move forward with this, with so much disregard to the concerns that we've brought up, is really concerning. So with that, yeah, we just cannot support the Second Trails crew in its current form. The district wants to meet with the union and try to figure out how to make this work. We're more than willing to do it. But everything we've gotten from the district is this is how it's going to be, and this is what it is. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newey. Are there any other public comments on this item? Oh, we can't hear you again, Yolanda, but is it appropriate to close the public hearing at this time? Yes.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and take a motion to close. Do we need a motion to close the public hearing? Okay, let's take a motion. Let's take a motion to close the public hearing. Who'd like to move that? Moved by Director Wieskamp and seconded by Director Waspy. So we have a motion and a second. Wieskamp, Waspy, please call the roll on the closing of the public hearing.
May I just ask a procedural question? I don't believe we opened the public hearing.
Yes, we did.
Did we okay.
I remembered to do it this time.
We did it.
Okay.
Ellen did it.
I guess I guess I didn't hear the first and the second on that then.
Yes.
Director Lane?
Oh, we actually didn't do a motion in a second.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes, we don't necessarily need a motion. Typically, it's handled with the gavel, but we have a first and a second on this. I think we should take roll.
Okay.
Okay.
Director Lane?
Aye.
Director Wieskamp?
Aye.
Director Eccles?
Aye.
Director Coffey?
Aye.
Director Waspy?
Aye.
Director Rosario?
Aye.
And Madam President Corbett?
Aye. So we've closed the public hearing, but we are open to questions and comments by board members on the budget. Would anybody like to ask any questions this evening? I do know that there were some questions asked by board members, and I'm sure there have been some answers given. Anybody else would like to state anything this evening? Do I see Director Rosario, is that your hand going up? Yes, yeah. Director Rosario, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for Finance Department and Deborah, you and your little helpers there in Santa's workshop are incredible. But I just wanted to address a couple of things, particularly in light of the comments on the Second Trails crew. And I really would like to see management meet with 2428 and see if they can't come up with to address the issues around Article 19. I do take, I think for me, I see this is an incredible opportunity to bring in youth into this kind of work. I would not want to see the program cut off. However, I totally understand the need for transparency and dealing with our union partners. And I think there's got to be some way we can come up with some kind of a side letter or an agreement to set some kind of standards to say when and where permanent employees can be incorporated into the first into the first crew. And also, because this is just a precursor, because with the change in national administration in the nation, I foresee a infrastructure program that will include opportunities to work in parks, in national, state, and local, and regional. And we're going to be asked to put people back to work. And I think showing good faith with our union members with this particular crew is essential to getting or being shovel ready for the opportunity on a possible infrastructure and infrastructure bill. And I think it's doable. I personally don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and losing an opportunity to train our young people to do these kind of jobs. I mean, where else are they going to get it? There is no other place. I mean, Livermore, LARPD laid off 22 people. State, national, every national agency and state agency has laid off workers. And we're going to be turning out to be the only game in town. And we need to, and I think we need to find a way to work with our union employees, our union labor partners, and work this out so that we can be ready and also be true to our commitments to the MOU. And then on a second part, Deborah brought up, this is something I brought up at Finance Committee, and possibilities of funding for future infrastructure, natural infrastructure. And we accumulate interest from our reservable funds annually. And I was wondering if there was a possibility of using those funds to seed these, to put those monies into these new savings accounts for future projects. So I think that's it. But I thank Deborah. Thank you again for you and your staff work. It's mind-boggling and very easy to follow, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Rosario. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Director Wieskamp.
The two Deborahs did a great job presenting a magnificent budget, as they always do. It's clear, it's precise. There are no questions in your mind when you go through it. I appreciate them and all the staff and all who work together. It's tough when you're going to have less money than you had the year before, because everybody has so many things they want to get done in this park district. Dee, who was just talking about possible futures. Well, we all hope that with the new administration, some really good things are going to happen throughout the country on infrastructure. And I think he's right. We need to be ready to do our part to make that happen. But my thanks again to our magnificent finance department. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wieskamp. I see I see a lot of hands up now. I see Director Coffey. Did I see Director Lane, Waspy, and Rosario? So let's go to Coffey. Director Coffey, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question left over from the Finance Committee. Most of my questions and comments were made at one or more Finance Committee meetings during the course of the last several months. One I didn't get to was, I think this is for Deb Spalding, the program and project and program budget and expenditure plans. There's a segment in that budget for programs including other district projects that provide services or special funding for activities that are, quote, not capital projects. And when you look at this list of 10 categories, I'm having a hard time figuring out why they aren't simply part of the operational budget, and whether they all look like they're department oriented and operational in nature and function. And I'm not sure whether it's because there are one-time special funding sources for these projects, or how they fall into that category and what it means.
Yeah, I wish I could turn on my video, but I still can't. So yes, everything in volume 2 is money that's set aside in a project. And sometimes that's because it's a special funding source like a grant, or it's bond funds where we need to track how we're using those funds very carefully in a project. And so there are definitely projects that if the funding source were different, they would be in our operating budget.
Okay.
Because we have to have them in a project to track them, they go in volume 2.
So normally land use planning and design is a normal function of that department and our staff. And in this case, it's placed in this special project funding because you're going to get reimbursed for those efforts from some special fund, maybe bonds.
I should add in one other reason we put funding into a project, which is for something that will take multiple years to complete. So a land use plan, if we were to give you a chunk of money, but we only give it to you for 1 year, your operating budget, you only get it for 1 year, you're not going to be able to finish that land use plan, and then those funds get whisked away. And that's just how our operating budget works. You get it for 1 year. If we put the money in a project, it rolls over until the project is completed, even if it takes 20 years.
Got it, and understood. I'd just also like to thank the finance staff for all the incredible work and effort that goes into this. I especially appreciate the additional information on the 1 extra FTE for the HR department that the finance committee asked you all to put into the budget for consideration as part of the full budget. And the ability to break down management salary savings from various sources and indicate to us that you didn't have to, as we expected, go somewhere else, take the money from somewhere else and plug it specifically into the spot. So management's ability to do that and find that funding is greatly appreciated. And lastly, I'll just note that, this addition of 1 FTE to that department and your budget wasn't just pulled out of the air. It wasn't some board members coming in and saying we want 1 extra position there. This evolved from 6 months of hearing from individual employees collectively and individually, and from managers and talking to managers, and from board members saying, we have a vision of how responsive that department needs to be to labor, to employee issues, and how do we get to that spot that we board members prioritize as a vision for how that department should function. Because the immense backlogs that exist by no fault of the people involved in that department or its leadership, it's just backlog. And so how do we get there? And the answer that came back from multiple sources over time was, well, maybe this 3rd FTE could do it, along with all the hesitation that goes with telling a board member that, maybe 1 more FTE could help with that, but it's going to come from somewhere else. And this is after months of working these issues out and all. So, I really appreciate that it's disruptive in a sense to say, you really need 1 more FTE, but it wasn't just the 1 more FTE. It was, what do you need to meet the vision of the board of directors for how this department should be performing, especially on behalf of its workforce, its services to employees and their collective bargaining unit. And that appeared to be the answer, and that's where it came from. So I just, for the benefit of others than those on the finance committee, I wanted to mention that background. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Coffey and Chair of the Finance Committee. I think that was very important for you to share that information with the board. Thank you very much. Director Lane, I believe, is next. And then we'll call on Director Waspy.
I appreciate Colin talking about that. I did have a conversation with him after I read the staff report, because I do know the restraints that are put on people who are looking for staff and are told they can't have them. So, you know, we see just, and particularly those of us who are not on finance, we just see the tip, you know, of the iceberg. And so I appreciate having that explanation. And I would expect we wouldn't do that very often out of respect for the process. I had a variety of questions and comments that Deborah and others did a very good job on responding to. So I want to thank you for doing that. I do look at the volume 2, and in particular looking at Concord Hills, and I was really pleased to see that we are actually still on target there at opening up a part of that as reflected in volume 2. But we don't have very much. I mean, I know there'll be more funds needed as we move toward opening that part of Concord Hills. So at what point are funds slotted in there? You know, because you look at, you know, 2021, 2, 3, and there's nothing in 2 and 3, for example, in the Concord Hills. So do I just need to be patient and look at next year's budget? Or how should I be looking at the progress of putting enough funds there to open? So that's
Director Lane, that is the mystery of how we gather support for our new projects. And I'm sure Acquisition, Stewardship and Development are putting together their timeline and their plans. We have a land use plan, and we'll be seeking outside funding for this project and looking at you know, any additional sources we can have or bond funding that's available. And when we're ready, we'll bring that forward to the board.
okay. And it's at that point that it will show up in our projects.
And we can all see that beautiful view behind you, just waiting to be opened.
Right. It does make you want to sneeze, though. You're thinking, you have any allergies? You look at this, the grasses. Then I did want to say that I appreciated getting answers back. One of them being the how we're proceeding on the ADA access to Lake Anza from the parking lot is underway, and to add for sure that Shadow Cliffs interpretive panel will be opening in 2021. It wasn't listed in all of the lists, and so I appreciate that. And then I thank Denise for sending me the org chart, because I was looking at both ASD and operations and realizing how many people there are within it and how many people have changed and names I don't know. So I need that help to connect those names to what is being done. And I'm assuming she's sending that as well to the rest of the board. Then I think the other things are just a congratulations really for managing to achieve so much this year in terms of actually construction and a few openings, and sympathy for you as we had to put together a budget which unlike past budgets ended up with half the new staff that we have been used to in past years. And I'm very worried about what the future holds for us in terms of our income, and certainly our whole COVID situation. So thank you for that. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Director Lane. I'm just going to do a quick time check. It's 7:58, and we did want to get to the 8 p.m. item by 8 p.m. Then we still have another project. We still have another presentation on Tassajara to do in the meantime too. So no pressure, board members. But Director Waspy, you're next.
You Member Corbett, I have nothing. No, I'll heed your wishes. I was just gonna give my congratulations. I think it's a great document. It's easily readable. It's transparent. I'm very, very happy that we're adding positions. I'm very happy we're opening new facilities. I won't mention them all. I'll do it when we approve this in 2 weeks. So in the mention of time, I'll yield, but I do share Director Rosario's concerns. I really, really think we need to be partners with our union brothers and sisters. It is, in fact, I totally agree with Director Rosario. I think we're going to get a civilian conservation corps. I think the federal government's going to help out, and I think we will provide jobs, good jobs for people to learn about parks and working in parks and all the health benefits you can get from that. I think will provide our members that we're working now with leadership positions, supervisory positions. I think it'll open up in the next couple of years, and I want to be good partners with our partners. So I share Director Rosario's concerns, and I hope we can deal with that. Article 19 or whatever it is. I'll yield for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Director Waspy. Director Eccles hasn't spoken yet, and I know Director Rosario has something else he'd like to say too. Director Eccles.
Great. I will try to be quick. So first of all, Deborah, thank you so much for this wonderful document, and thank you for your help all the time. You and your team are always so incredibly responsive and make everything so clear and understandable. And this document is just another example of that. And you know, actually, a lot of my questions were addressed through the other supplemental document that you sent around earlier in response to all the questions from the folks in the Finance Committee. So I really appreciate that information. I also wanted to just say, you know, thank you to management and staff for working closely with Deborah and her team to really tighten our belt and make sure that we have a balanced budget going forward in these uncertain times. It's absolutely critical. But at the same time, you know, I think we should be grateful that we have, you know, we actually are adding positions and still doing some opening. And so I just want to look at least a little bit at the glass being at least somewhat full. I also wanted to underscore the point that both Dee and Dennis have made now about being good partners. And so I really encourage management to work closely with ASB 2428 to address this concern. I also hope that we will have an opportunity to have a bigger conservation corps and be able to hire people, you know, coming out of this horrible pandemic and have a real jobs program. And there are opportunities for everyone, but I think there are particularly opportunities for youth and some of our underserved communities. And so there's some real potential there. And I want to make sure that we can build and grow in a way that is respectful and in good partnership with our labor partners.
Thank you very much, Director Eccles. Director Rosario, I think you had another comment.
No, Director Coffey said it perfectly regarding the position that we're advocating for in human resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief too. I agree with working with our labor partners on the trails crew issues. We all recognize and know that we do need more people working in positions, and permanent positions would be wonderful. Trails are a very important part of what we are. So I don't need to say much more on that. And also, Director Rosario, I agree with you. Director Coffey did an excellent job of presenting the sentiments of the Finance Committee. I agree with what he said. Our decision and recommendation was very well thought out. We asked the questions, and you know, the decision was made based on, I think, well-founded principles, shall we say. So I agree with us continuing to move forward with the recommendation of the Finance Committee to add the additional position in HR. And we weren't flying by the seat of our pants when we made that recommendation. So with that, I think those are all the comments from the board members on the budget for now. We will see you at the next meeting. And I will just add very quickly too, I'd be remiss, AGM Ocker and Deborah Spalding and all of your amazing crew. We appreciate all the work you've done this year. It's always outstanding work. And this was a year of particular difficulties, additional challenges, including what we do at work and what we do at home. And we appreciate that, you gave us a great document that is it's a very strong document. It's tough to make certain decisions in a tough year, but thank you. I think you used great judgment in what you presented to us. So thank you. With that, we're done with that item. And board members, just a time check again. It's 8 o'clock right now. We have 4 more items to go. So without any further ado, let's go to 2B, which is the acceptance of the classification and compensation study reports for all Park District employee groups. I know we're going to have a quick presentation, but board members, please know we've had the opportunity to take a look at this and discuss it. And what we're being asked for this evening is just to adopt the budget. We are not having a discussion on implementation. We believe that is something that will come to us at a later time after we have the opportunity to get even more input. So with that, we have HR Chief Picard and DGM Alvarez to present and introduce on that item.
Yes, thank you so much, Director Corbett. Deputy General Manager, Dr. Ana Alvarez, at your service. The item before you is the adoption or the acceptance of the classification and compensation reports. And I will be making a brief introduction ahead of the team to give a little bit of context. So I'm going to share my screen. The board of directors has provided policy direction dedicated to fulfill the mission of the Park District in service to the public. Clear and up-to-date job classifications, as well as compensation that is fair in today's public sector market, are some of the important tools to attract and retain a workforce of excellence, which is one of the main goals as stated in our master plan. By engaging in this process, the board of directors is establishing district-wide classification and compensation plans for represented as well as unrepresented employees through a transparent and public process. And that's what we're doing here tonight. As a way of background, the project was conducted under guiding principles and with the participation of key stakeholders. We made a commitment that the studies will be conducted in an inclusive and collaborative manner to ensure integrity and transparency in the process. We made a commitment that positions will be assessed and classified, not necessarily the individuals encumbering the positions or the individuals working in those positions. We also made a commitment that the employee wages will not be reduced as a result of this project. And by that, we mean current wages that they're earning. And also we talked about a framework that is driven by data, meaning a methodology that is consistent by a third-party validator. And we also made a commitment that we were going to be benchmarking against the same market across all employee groups. So if you recall, as we go into collective bargaining processes, or as we talk about compensation, the Park District had used different types of agencies to benchmark. So these studies actually were benchmarking on the one defined market. And also we are looking at a market target of 5% plus or below the median. As stewards of public funds, there are multiple stakeholders, starting with the public, for which we are accountable to in terms of our decisions and our actions, especially when it comes to compensation. Certainly, our board of directors have been engaged and kept informed on this 3-year process, which has been led through a collaboration of key executives comprising a steering committee, the engagement of a joint labor management task force, and certainly our employees, their supervisors, and the managers. All of us work together, building on the shared values of mission delivery, the stewardship of public lands, and maintaining a competitive, fair, and equitable compensation in delivering excellent services to the public. For today, and in keeping to our value and commitment to a transparent public process, Mr. Doug Johnson from Ralph Anderson Associates will be providing us with an overview of the classification and compensation study reports. Staff will come back no later than early February of the coming year with a proposed implementation plan and compensation guidelines. Please note that Ms. Allison Picard, our interim Chief Human Resources Officer, and members of the project team, which includes District Council, our CFO, Deborah Alker, and myself, will be available to join Doug in answering any questions that you may have. So with that, I will lower my screen and let Doug come in and start the presentation if there's no comments or questions from the board.
Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Hello.
If you'd like to go forward, we can hold questions till when you're done.
Okay, and I will be brief. Thank you for giving me a chance to go through this real quickly. So just some of this is obviously a refresher, but just covering why we're doing a class and comp study. Classification and compensation is a way of essentially grouping positions, recognizing the work that's performed by employees, and making sure your titling structure and your job descriptions are up to date and reflective of what the current workload is. On top of that, we're valuing those job classifications through a compensation study, and that involves looking at market benchmark data, using comparable kind of competing employers, looking at salary range structures and benefits, and then also looking at internal relationships. So those are all the components that we've looked at as part of our project. The process involved stakeholders throughout. Employees were a key part of the involvement. All employees got a chance to fill out a questionnaire. They all had an opportunity to be interviewed and discuss their job with project consultants. And we not only interviewed employees, but also talked with managers and supervisors. There was a steering committee that I worked with throughout the project. So those were all points where employees got to be involved in providing information about what their job classifications, the duties that they perform. We also did a review process where when we prepared draft job descriptions, employees had an opportunity to review that draft and provide input and feedback before we finalized that information. All of that was done before we got too far in the compensation process, which involved doing a market survey, looking at internal relationships, and coming up with specific recommendations based on those analyses. Implementation, as you well know, is something different and separate. AFSCME has already gone through their meet and confer process, and I think the Police Association has to some degree. So I think what you're dealing with coming up would be the unrepresented and management groups as you move forward. So just a real quick summary. With AFSCME, that's your largest group in terms of number of job titles, number of classifications. So we had 41 job title changes. There were 7 class consolidations. So we actually took some levels and consolidated them into single levels. And then we had 3 new job classifications. With seasonals, there were no changes. With Police Association, there were 2 title changes that were relatively minor. With unrepresented confidentials, we had 2 title changes. And then with unrepresented management, we had 11 title changes and 4 new job classifications. All of those are derived from the way in which the work is organized and allocated and distributed as you provide services in the organization. I do have charts here that go through detail, but I'm not going to go through that. I just wanted to visually let you know, AFSCME, this is essentially a list of all the changes that were made as part of the AFSCME study in terms of title changes. Police Association, we just had a couple, so that's a very small page here. And then these were the changes that were made for confidential and management. There were no changes that were made, as I said before, to seasonal. So relatively minor changes, but important changes in terms of improving consistency and the descriptive nature of titles. The survey agencies were, we went through an analysis and made some recommendations. So these were vetted before we did the survey, and we got the input of the board, obviously. We had the input of labor representatives, executive team, and there was a study steering committee. So these 16 agencies best represent competing organizations. It's often been said that there's no organization out there like the Park District, and that's true, but you still compete with Bay Area employers for most of your jobs. And for those jobs that are very unique to the organization, we have ways of being able to analyze and look at salary levels and recognize that uniqueness. You'll recall that I provided charts throughout the process that gave you kind of this distribution of market relationships for each of the survey jobs. And this is a chart that shows, if you kind of go left to right, we had 7 job classifications in the AFSCME study that were more than 20% below median. And then as you kind of go left to right, 5 classes that were 15 to 20%, 10 that were 10 to 15%, and 7 that were 5 to 10% below median. Those are all instances where you're below that plus minus 5% range. That's kind of the ideal target. I think we did have one outlier classification that was slightly above or outside that window. The objective would be to increase pay ranges and get closer to all jobs being within that shaded region. And that was something that, again, was dealt with as part of the meet and confer process for AFSCME. So similar results or findings, at least just in terms of the way that this is shown. For seasonal, it was very similar. These are kind of jobs that are comparable in some respects, similar level to what we found or utilized in looking at AFSCME. So it wasn't a surprise to see that they were also some key job titles significantly below market. And I think that you made some adjustments there, also recognizing changes in minimum wage and wanting to be aggressive in being able to deal with that. And then for our police association, we just had 5 classifications that were surveyed. And this shows the results of that. They're a little bit closer to market, just a couple jobs that were outside that plus or minus 5% window. And then for confidential jobs, these are unrepresented employees. This group was actually slightly above market. So this is a situation where we didn't have any job classification that was more than 5% below the market median. And then our last group is management. And this group looks a little bit like AFSCME, but we don't have as many that are 15, 20% below market. We have quite a few that are kind of in the middle there. And so this group is a little bit closer to the market median compared to the other groups. So in terms of additional compensation analyses, we not only did the market survey, we also looked at benefits, and there's a lot of number crunching to that to essentially determine, or the finding there was that there's no significant difference in your benefits compared to market. We looked at salary range compaction separately to make sure that there wasn't any instance of compaction. There were a few, but they would be rectified based on our implementation recommendations or the changes in pay ranges that we're recommending for management. But we've identified those in the report and made sure that the organization is kind of aware of mechanisms to be able to manage that moving forward. The salary range structure, AFSCME and seasonal police association jobs all had salary range structures that were consistent with the marketplace. For confidential and management groups, the salary ranges look very different than most agencies. We didn't find any other agencies that had merit steps or something like merit steps. So that's addressed in the report in terms of a recommendation to modify your range structures to better align with what the market findings are. And then we did an internal relationship analysis to look at salary differentials and equity relationships. This is just kind of a summary in terms of the kind of average trends. And I know that this is in the staff report and in our individual reports, but it just shows you kind of just a ballpark average of what the overall group relationships are. You can see AFSCME was the one that was 12% out. Seasonal was actually a little bit more, but fewer job classifications. Police association was right within plus minus 5%. Confidential a little bit higher than 5%. And then management was just on that cusp of within 5% of median. In terms of study recommendations, we have some title recommendations and revised job descriptions that will ultimately move forward at some level of adoption. And again, that's the part that's been widely reviewed and commented on before it got to this point. We have salary range adjustments. AFSCME has gone through their meet and confer process. There were significant adjustments as part of that. Police association and confidentials, no changes based on the market data. And management, some minor salary adjustments, a couple equity adjustments, as well as I think recommendation in terms of the range structure being more in line with the marketplace. So when you go through implementation, obviously with AFSCME, that's a meet and confer process. And so there's a dynamic to that you well know and that you've already gone through. For the non-represented, it becomes something that is part of board approval and adoption, and you're looking at compensation policies, budget impacts, and so forth. And there may be further labor negotiations for represented employees as you look forward to further bridging any gaps that remain in the survey. And that's it. That's my quick little summary in terms of our reports.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, DGM Alvarez, and Chief Picard are here to answer your questions, board members. But please keep in mind, as you know, we are adopting the report that we have before us. I just stopped for a moment to say this is monumental. It is important. This study has been asked for a number of years, and we now have the data so that we can address issues and have good numbers to make decisions into the future. However, we are not making any decisions with regard to implementation this evening. We will be looking at that in the new year, as has already been mentioned. So does anybody have any questions or comments before we adopt and approve the acceptance of this document? I see the clerk. I do know we have a public comment. I do. I have not forgotten. Any board members, anything? Okay, very good. Thank you. Obviously, you all did a great job of presenting to us. So let's open up the public comments. Mr. Newey is here to comment this evening.
Thank you, President Corbett. Chris Newey, President of ASME Local 2428. I'll try to be brief. As I've stated many times, back in 2015, there was restructuring of the management salaries, with which at the time several ASME members came and spoke in front of the board and stated that exactly what the reports show is that the confidentials would be way out of line, especially compared to when you look at the secretaries that were under ASME versus the confidential secretaries. And so, yeah, the report, I think, shows and supports that those statements that were made are in fact exactly what happened. But here we are. You all, the board of directors, have a great opportunity to correct some of the inequities throughout the district in the next couple of years. And we hope you take that responsibility seriously and correct, some of these inequities that have existed for a long time. Something else that I want to point out that we believe wasn't addressed, and that's because of the way in which these studies were performed. Was the studies didn't look at internal equities between bargaining units, and I understand why they weren't. But for an organization to have two bargaining units, to have the management, the confidentials, and to have these unrepresented groups, and to not look at internal equity as a whole, I think really does a disservice to all of the employees and all of the taxpayers who fund the agency. So it's just something that hopefully in the future we could look at. But yeah, I hope the board will move forward and like I said, in the next couple of years, and correct all the inequities that all these reports have pointed out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newey. Appreciate that. And any other public comments on this item, Madam Clerk? All right, board members, if there aren't any questions or comments, a motion is in order to accept the report.
I would move we accept the report.
Thank you very much. Moved by Director Waspy, seconded by Director Rosario. Please call the roll on this item.
Yes, Madam President. Director, Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
Aye.
Director Eccles, Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Rosario,
Aye.
Madam President Corbett,
Aye.
and I believe, did I call everybody? Director Coffey?
Yes. Aye.
How come we
Yes, you-
get vote twice?
Oh, twice.
I don't know, nobody did anything, so I thought maybe I missed somebody.
Thank you all for your solid work on this really important report. We appreciate it even though we're. Thank you all very much.
It's unanimously approved.
It's unanimously approved. Thank you for that. All right. Okay, so we're going on to the next item, and I just want to point out we are about an hour behind schedule now, so let's try to see what we can do to, and we're not going to catch up, but try to get close. So our next item, also very important, and I know we have some people here to comment publicly on this item too, under Acquisition, Stewardship, and Development Division. We have the authorization to enter into an agricultural preservation agreement with Contra Costa County and the City of San Ramon at the Tassajara Ridge Regional Trail. And I'll just say in advance, we appreciate all the, again, amazing work in negotiating and moving forward on this really important project. So thank you to you all. And we will be hearing from AGM Kelchner and Brian Holt and the general manager as well. So I'll just give you the floor. Oh, Bob, you're
We
muted.
will do this as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Thank you, General Manager. Thank you, President Corbett and members of the board. Christina Kelchner, Assistant General Manager of Acquisition, Stewardship, and Development, presenting on this Tassajara Parks item. This is an agricultural preservation agreement on property adjacent to Tassajara Ridge Trail. This has been a long-standing effort by many to ensure permanent protection of the Tassajara Valley. And can you all see the slides okay?
We cannot see the slides.
Okay.
No slide.
For me, thank you very much. I think you.
You can see them now.
Okay, thank you. I would like to acknowledge the efforts of many decades from Director Lane and from General Manager Doyle for their work in protecting this area. And I'd also like to acknowledge this evening 3 important partners that we have joining us. We have John Kopchik, the Community Development Director with Contra Costa County, Seth Adams, the Land Conservation Director for Save Mount Diablo, and Phil Alone, City Council Member from the City of San Ramon. We really appreciate them joining us tonight, and we look forward to hearing their comments. I'd also like to thank Brian Holt from my staff and Naoma Laval, who are also here to assist with answering questions. The recommendation before you today is that the board authorize staff to enter into an agricultural preservation agreement with the Contra Costa County and the City of San Ramon for future dedication of parkland adjacent to the Tassajara Ridge Regional Trail. This is a 3-way agreement with the county, the city, and the district. Next slide, Brian. The area we are discussing is the Tassajara Valley, which is located to the east of the City of San Ramon and the town of Danville. The agreement comes about as a condition of the proposed Tassajara Parks development project that will be considered by Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors in 2021. The agreement provides that if the project is approved by the county, the property owner will donate to the Regional Parks Foundation approximately 727 acres of land for use as parks and open space. As shown on the map, the property is surrounded by other protected open space with Brown Ranch to the east and Duland Canyon to the east, Hidden Valley open space to the west in the City of San Ramon, Mount Diablo to the north. The project provides an opportunity to add over 725 acres of parkland. This will provide an important wildlife corridor, a buffer from existing development, and a future trail connection opportunities from San Ramon all the way to Mount Diablo, which has been a long-standing goal of many people on the call this evening. In addition to expanding our regional park system in this area, The Park District's fee title ownership of these lands would help prevent any further development to the east in the Tassajara Valley. The district's ownership of approximately 118 acres of land on the northern part of the site would effectively limit the extension of municipal utilities to the north or to the east of the property. And the same is true with the southern ownership of 609 acres, would make it very difficult to extend municipal utilities from the existing development where you can see in Windermere Ranch there across the property to the rest of the Tassajara Valley on the east. Save Mount Diablo and others have described this as a green wall that will help to prevent further development to the east and to the north in Tassajara Valley. The Agricultural Preservation Agreement also requires the property owner to establish a $4 million fund to support agriculture and open space within the Tassajara Valley. The county will hold and manage that fund, but by signing the agreement, the Park District will be a partner in determining how those funds are spent to continue to protect and conserve this land. The area proposed for protection through dedication to the Park District has been designated as highly suitable for conservation by the Conservation Lands Network. These are high fire-prone areas, and so it's important to limit the wildland-urban interface and protect the lands that are surrounded, again, by Morgan Territory Regional Preserve, Doolin Canyon, the Los Vasqueros Watershed, and Mount Diablo State Park. It will also provide an important wildlife corridor from north to south, adjacent to the Tassajara Ridge Regional Trail. Next slide. The Tassajara Valley has been the center of debates about development and urban growth for decades. The valley area was originally proposed for development of up to over 5,000 homes by the Tassajara Valley Properties Association in the 1990s. That was very controversial, and the proposal was eventually withdrawn. And then in 2010, the city of San Ramon sought to expand their urban limit line to Tassajara Road through Measure W, which would have resulted in significant development on the west side of Tassajara Valley. Voters defeated Measure W by over 70%. Beth Adams and Save Mount Diablo deserve credit for a significant amount of work to inform the voters of the impact of Measure W and leading the campaign to hold the urban limit line. Following the defeat of Measure W, the property owners of the land that comprises Tassajara Parks project proposed what was then called the New Farm Project that would develop 187 homes outside of the urban limit line that would have been scattered throughout the west side of the Tassajara Valley and surrounded by vineyards and olive groves. Saved Out Mount Diablo and the Park District this time both challenged the New Farm Project as violating the urban limit line and as the kind of scattered ranchette development that is not good for open space and wildlife. The property owners reevaluated their proposal at that time, and since then have worked closely with the Park District, Save Mount Diablo, and the county to limit their development footprint to 30 acres and to provide significant open space protections to protect the remainder of the Tassajara Valley. The Tassajara Parks property does consist of two sites, which you can see in yellow here, the northern site and the southern site, totaling 727 acres that would be donated to the Regional Parks Foundation for public parkland. And the developer would also develop a recreational staging area and a trail on the northern site. The project would also fund a long-term management of the staging area, the trail, the maintenance and operation of that through a community facilities district or similar mechanism to provide that long-term funding. The Tassajara Parks project would cluster 125 homes on that 30 acres of the northern site, and that is adjacent to existing development. You can see there to the west of the city of San Ramon. There's an elementary school right there, and then to the south is a large soccer complex. So the development would be right up against that existing development. And the development of those 30 acres would require that the county approve an exception to the urban limit line. Under the existing code, the county code, which was voter approved, does allow an exception to if the county make certain findings. And one of those findings can be that the project that would move the urban limit line would provide significant protections for the agricultural uses in the area. This agreement before you today would support the county in making those findings. However, the Park District is not a required signer on that agreement. The City of San Ramon and the county signing that agreement is sufficient to meet the code requirements. Staff recommends that the district does enter into the agreement as an additional signer because we have negotiated and worked hard with the developer, the city and the county to include terms that are valuable for the district and for the wildlife and the conservation and the protection of open space in this area. The agreement also requires the developer to establish a $4 million fund to protect open space and agriculture in the area. And by signing the agreement, the Park District would participate in how that money would be spent. Now, the project as proposed does protect over 95% of the Tassajara Park's property, and again would limit the development to the cluster development to 125 homes on the 30 acres. Next slide, Brian. And so again, our recommendation is that the board authorize staff to enter into this agreement. And I would like to mention that just last week, the City of San Ramon did authorize, the City Council did authorize that the city would enter into the agreement as well. The agreement would go to the county after the new year when the county begins their review process for this project. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And board members, does anybody have any questions at this point? Not seeing any hands go up. How about if we go to public comments? I know we have some individuals who have been waiting patiently to speak to us this evening. Madam Clerk, can you please let us know who is here?
Yes, Madam President, I see Seth Adams, Mr. Phil Aloni, and I don't know if John Kopchik is gonna speak, but let's start with Seth. Seth, you have 3 minutes and you can unmute yourself.
Hello, Mr. Adams, welcome.
I'm trying to unmute you. You're going to have to unmute yourself.
Technology.
You're working on it.
No,
Hey guys, sorry about that. I had to unplug a cord and replug it.
Okay.
We don't need to hear all your.
Corbett and members of the board. I'm Seth Adams. I'm the Land Conservation Director for Save Mount Diablo. And as was stated, we've worked to defend the Tassajara area for more than 30 years. I thought Christina did a really great presentation and I don't want to duplicate too much of it, but I want to tell you that Tassajara is beautiful. It's defined by the valley along Camino Tassajara, and it includes sensual grassland hills extending east to Highland Ridge and Morgan Territory and north to Mount Diablo. It's really important wildlife habitat. It's threatened by ranchettes and fragmentation despite being water short. After Doherty Valley development was approved adjacent to San Ramon, developers thought the Tassajara Valley would be the next domino, and they proposed 5,300 units on 5,000 acres stretching from Dublin to Mount Diablo. Silicon Valley helped drive that pressure. Land values are very high. Dublin doubled in size in the subsequent years. And we helped to stop that 5,000 acre project. We helped to create the county urban limit lines in 1990, to tighten the line in 2000, to exclude the valley, and to require voter approval for changes in 2004, except for legal 30 acre adjustments to the line. We defended against the New Farm project, which would have broken the urban limit line without significant public benefits. In 2010, we defended against Measure W, a San Ramon effort to annex half the valley. And subsequently, the San Ramon City Council evolved from incredibly pro-growth to incredibly pro-open space. To the south in 2014, We created an urban limit line in Dublin, protecting Doolin and Collier Canyons and helping to encircle this region. While the new farm project was stalled, the applicant approached us and proposed a legal 30-acre adjustment for a much smaller project while protecting the remaining 95% of the property. It's the best open space trade-off we've ever seen. The open space dedication are spectacular. They're strategic, more than a square mile strengthening the urban limit line, buffering and extending the Tassajara Ridge Trail closer to Mount Diablo, and including really dramatic views. We have spent more time and dollars defending urban limit lines legally and at the ballot box than any other conservation organization in the East Bay. But urban limit lines are not usually permanent. The county and the San Ramon urban limit lines will expire in the next few years, and they can be changed at any election with a vote. This legal 30-acre adjustment can be used if one of 7 findings is made, and one of them is the agricultural preservation agreement between several jurisdictions. We were involved with the writing of the agreement. It was modeled after the Briones Hill Agreement, which first helped manage growth and limit annexations in that area. And we think it's great progress to get the county, San Ramon, and the Park District on the same page in the Tassajara region, covering the entire 17,000-acre area. So with your help, with your staff's help, we helped negotiate the trade-off. We helped negotiate strengthening the urban limit line permanently by creating a green wall, recreational benefits of a new staging area and the Tassajara Trail extension. And on top of that, to make this a really significant public benefit, the $4 million Ag and Open Space Protection Fund is a significant benefit, all in exchange for 30 acres of development. It's time to take a win. During the past 3 weeks, the San Ramon City Council has approved the Ag Preservation Agreement twice unanimously. Thank you to all of your staff, especially GM Robert Doyle, Brian Holt, and Christina Kelchner for their years of work on this proposal. Save Mount Diablo is strongly in support of the Agricultural Preservation Agreement, Ag and Open Space Fund of $4 million, and the other conservation and recreational benefits of this project. It's a great trade-off and a very good precedent. We would greatly appreciate your support of the Agricultural Preservation Agreement this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adams. And I think our next speaker is Council Member Alone from Ramon.
Okay.
Thanks for the opportunity. And I won't. I was just thinking the only person who can mute Seth Adams is himself. So I'm impressed that was actually possible. But I really, what's happened over the course of the last 10 years is the first time I think I ever met Bob Doyle was in a conference room on our old city hall. And he said the last time he was in here was to try to settle a lawsuit. And we've come a long way since then. And what San Ramon's plans have been as the council really is to try to make, I said and have said a number of times recently, we want East Bay Parks as our neighbor all up and down the east and west side of San Ramon. That's really the long-term goal of the city. And this is a very big step in that direction. And we hope that you approve this today. It's a beautiful piece of property, as Seth said. And I want to especially thank Bev Lane for her efforts over the course of time to defend both sides of San Ramon. And the fact that this was a unanimous vote of the city council was a pleasant surprise to me. And I think indicative of what's going to happen long term. This was my last official act as a city council member, and I know that my successor shares my views, but I just want to thank East Bay Parks for all the work that we've really accomplished just in the last few years. It's been wonderful, and this is a nice cherry on top of a bunch of work that we've done, more to do, but thanks very much. This is a great project or a great opportunity. We really appreciate your partnership in this, or the potential partnership in this.
Thank you very much, Council Member Alone, and thank you very much for your public service. Appreciate it.
That is that is our speakers, Madam President.
That is the last speaker? Okay, very
Yes.
good. Okay, Mr. GM.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Council Member and Mr. Adams, and to staff. very, very briefly, as you heard from this history, there's been thousands of units proposed, much like we saw at Pleasanton Ridge, Dublin Hills, and Vargas Plateau over the years. And the only way to truly protect land is to acquire it as public ownership or by conservation easement, but frequently conservation easements restrict any public use. The proposal in the future is to expand that corridor. If we have willing sellers and opportunities there, this is not a measured WW project except for the trail. So there is very limited funding. So being able to acquire this from a donation from a seller precludes future changes to the urban limit line. That just requires a vote. It is not a permanent fixed line. And as said, the 30 acres was an exception that was agreed to per these conditions. This is an opportunity to expand the Hidden Valley open space, which is open to the public in San Ramon, and it would double that size of that open space and be a major opportunity to expand future protection and public use in the Tuscarora Valley. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. GM. Yes, Director Lane.
Well, you know, this is really a walk down memory lane for me, because I guess at the San Ramon Council, they said it's been 40 years, and it has been decades with a whole variety of proposals, dedications, arguments, people changing their mind, agriculturalists saying it isn't agriculture. It's been a really interesting process over these many decades. And I guess John Kopchep is here. And if he is, I would just like to ask him to comment a little bit on the evolution of the way this agreement came about. That concept of the green wall, I think, is a really interesting one. And there were discussions about having a geologic hazard abatement district. And now we're talking about the park district owning property. So I wonder if you would just talk to us a little bit about the evolution getting us to this point, John.
Thank you. Good evening, Director Lane. Thanks for the invitation to speak. Yeah, I think that Ms. Kelchner showed a really good slide that showed the history of this. And from, you know, the urban limit line used to include most of that area. So when the first urban limit line was created in 1990, most of the core of the Tuscarora Valley was inside the line. And Ms. Kelchner's slide referred to more than 5,000 homes. And then the line was moved in, but the discussions with the property owners continued, and the Measure W proposal in San Ramon did not pass, and then New Farm. And so now I think you're wanting me to focus on the most recent history, which was to try and help the proposer of that Tuscarora Parks project to come up with a proposal that created permanent open space around the 30-acre proposed exception to the urban limit line. And so it's definitely something from the staff perspective, as we try and formulate something to bring to our board, that we felt that the strongest proposal would be one where East Bay Regional Park District was the owner of the open space lands, so that it was very clearly a permanently protected buffer around those lands, and it wouldn't be a precursor to further development. And so that's what's happened. And so that's why what's proposed is for the non-developed lands that East Bay Regional Park District would propose to receive those lands through its foundation as a donation from the developer. And I think that's part of the reason why county staff will be recommending approval of this is because we view this as a little bit of growth that provides a lot of benefit in terms of not having future greenfield development. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. I think seeing the map and hearing that history, you know, brings a really good context to it. And So I really want to thank Seth and Save Mount Diablo for what they have been doing to pursue saving this property over yay many years. It's something they really can look back on and be proud of. And I want to thank Phil too for his work. And he's seen the council evolve into being willing to do a unanimous support for this, which is pretty impressive. And I just wanted to say a special thank you to Donna Gerber, who was the county supervisor at the time, who put up with who knows how much to move that urban limit line from where it was a decade earlier to where it is today. Brian and Christina have been working very hard on this, and I think articulated very well where we are. It's not perfect, but it is. But I love the concept of the green wall, and we are setting up open space here that I'm very proud the Park District will be taking care of, and it will keep development in line, even though this is taking advantage of the 30-acre incursion into the urban limit line. So thank you very much for everybody, and I would like to make a motion to
Yes, and I know Mr. Kopchik is known to all of us, but for the record, could you please just identify yourself just real quick?
Sorry, John Kopchik. I'm the director of the Department of Conservation and Development for Contra Costa County.
Thank you so very much. And a motion is in order from Director Lane. Unless there's any additional questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody want to join me with a celebration later? Oh no. So I would like to move that.
Maybe your kitty.
Feed your cat, Bethany.
I would like to move the cat. I'd like to move that we are authorized to enter into an agricultural preservation agreement with Contra Costa County and the city of Saramon.
I'd like to second.
So we have a motion by Director Lane and we have a second by Director Coffey. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Madam President. Director Wieskamp?
Yes.
Director Eccles?
Yes.
Director Lane?
Yes.
Director Coffey?
Aye.
Director Waspy?
Yes.
Director Rosario?
Aye.
Madam President Corbett?
I just wanted to state that I am someone who's quite supportive of land regulation and urban limit lines, but after listening to the public comments this evening, I would happily vote aye.
Yay.
Oh, and that's unanimous.
Unanimously approved.
It's adopted.
Thank you.
Only 7 of us. Thank goodness.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yay. Applause.
Yes. Okay, thank you all very much. And we have one more item until we get to the staff report by Michael McNally. So our next item is board and staff reports, actions taken in other jurisdictions by the general manager.
Thank you very much. Unless there's questions, it's in writing in your board packet.
Thank you very much, Mr. GM. Any questions? Okay. All right. So our next item is under general manager's comments, and we have a staff presentation from our facilities manager, Michael McNally. He will be presenting an update of the 2019-2020 accomplishments, and I'm sure the general manager would like to do a further acknowledgement, but we want to thank Mr. McNally for his wonderful years of service, and we will miss you, and we'll have a time to celebrate you, I think, in a few days. But thank you very much for joining us on your last meeting, and we appreciate the mark you have made at the Park District. Thank you.
All the above, Michael. Appreciate all you've gone through. I knew that when you were dealing with the Concord Pavilion, which I grew up with, that you were able to navigate the rock and roll of the Park District and managing all the opinions and all of the concerns and hand-wringing of where am I going to sit, where am I going to get an office, and when is this going to get fixed? So, Michael, I just want to thank you for your service. We take great pride in our employees, and you've been a great one. And you're probably getting out while the getting's good as far as having to maintain a new building across the street from Proud to Oak. So I hope we didn't scare you off with that. So thank you, Michael. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that building's probably not going to be ready until 2024. I didn't think I was going to make it until then. But that'll be exciting. I think they'll really they'll really bring that together. So I was going to share a little, some slides, a little update on it, but I'd like to thank you for letting me be here, President Corbett and Board of Directors and General Manager Doyle. I'm Michael McNally, the Facilities Manager, and I'll attempt to share my screen. Let's see. That one. And let me know if you see it. See a blue screen?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and get it started. Okay, so in the past, I've been able to do my report a little earlier in the year, so I had never done the 2019 kind of report, but since it's so late in the year, I'm kind of wrapping up both 2019 and 2020. Just to review our department structure for office services, it includes a switchboard and reception desk, facility services, copy room, messenger and mail room, and central stores, which has been a major player in these COVID times. So in 2019, we greeted over 3,000 visitors that came through the lobby, took 10,000 telephone calls, providing information to the public, directed calls to appropriate departments and staff, coordinated the pool vehicle fleets of 11 vehicles, that got used nearly 1,000 times, and coordinated the meeting reservations at the main office and at the Trudeau Center. Of course, the lobby has been closed since March, but we still are answering phone calls. A lot of them seem to still be about the tax lien on their property tax bill. In the facility services in 2019, we set up and cleaned for 1,537 meetings at the main office, set up 418 at the Trudeau Training Center, and we closed 403 service tickets. So those are, could be repairs or asking to move items, or there might be some other problems or projects that we do around the place that people requested. In the copy room, we did in 2019, 980 orders for nearly 900,000 pages. So far this year, I would say we're down about 16% with not as many people in the office. I think we're not getting as many requests for copies, and a lot of things are going more digital. We take care of all the US mail coming in and out, scanning incoming invoices for accounts payable, and providing support to the Xerox copiers at the main office. Messenger service delivers interoffice mail to 54 sites weekly, including 31 parks, processed 40,450 pieces of mail in 2019. But so far in 2020, we're probably down 34% as far as postage. The delivery service has been going on. Central stores, we processed in 2019, 3,525 orders, sold 76,623 items and $802,000 worth of sales. They delivered to 49 sites, including 32 parks during the week. And they have been the opposite of the rest of my services in that their sales are up 11% so far this year. And again, a lot of it has to do with PPE and other supplies because of COVID. And just to introduce to the Brian Ward is a temporary for Hector, who's been sheltering at home, and then Nat Hirata and Jeff Colantuno, who's our new store supervisor, and he's done a great job in taking over the operation and getting out there and getting items that are needed for the district. It's kind of like the Wild West out there. You never know who's going to have what. And if it's a legitimate item, Jeff has really been doing a great job in getting items for the district. Office services, we have 11 ongoing contracts that include the HVAC, the fire alarm and life safety, the elevator, janitorial services, landscape services, Xerox copier and Iron Mountain contracts are some of that. And then on the customer service survey, overall for the whole department, we scored 85% for good or excellent line for 2019. Under project we'd already modernized the elevator. Now we replaced the elevator jack, which meant they had to dig a hole in the ground about 60 feet and replace that. Just recently, we took care of the lunchroom remodel. It has more of a coffee shop vibe now to it. Really turned out nicely. It's just too bad we don't have people that can really use it.
It's nice.
Yes, I think they're really going to like it when they come back. Normally, our building, we have nearly 200 people in the building right now. We might have 12 to 15 any given day inside the building. So we have moved out some of those tables just to make so that doesn't encourage a large crowd, but there really isn't. The breezeway lighting, we replaced all the lighting inside the breezeway, and it makes it a lot nicer and brighter now in there. This is all LED lights, including in the round lights as well. And then you see the light on the right, that's what's in the parking bay. So it's really brightened up the entrance. And then on the south side, we did some new plantings right there by the delivery door. And so we did more native and drought tolerant plants. And I think that's going to really look nice when that's in place. We also renovated the southwest side of the building. Most of the building's in pretty good shape paint-wise, but this is the south side, and it really took a beating. And the windows, we were getting some leaks, so we repaired the leaks. Repaired the windows, took care of the leaks, and painted the wood trim and frames. At Central Stores, we insulated the warehouse. Makes a big difference, especially on those cold winter days. We've also launched a new web form for Central Stores ordering. Makes it easier for people to navigate. They don't have to go through as many steps to complete their orders. We also installed a new fire and security alarm system at Central Stores. But we're going to also take the Central Stores web form up a notch. We're going to make it look like more of a shopping cart experience, like what you might see when you go online. And this is just kind of an example that we're working on, that they would be able to browse the catalog. They'll see pictures of items, and right on the front page, they would see like, okay, if I need bathroom supplies or office supplies, they could click on those and browse the different items. So here, this is what they might look if they search. They'll be able to see the pictures and the items, where right now they don't see pictures. And then they have the little cart up there that they would put their items in there. And then now with COVID-19, we've had to set up procedures for check-in stations. So at 3 of our doors, this is where they come in, they take their temperature, answer the questions, and sign in. And then we've also did some changes to our HVAC. We run the ventilation 2 hours before the start of the system, just to keep the air moving, and it runs for 2 hours after the system shuts down in the evening. And the biggest takeaway is that you really want to keep the air circulating through the building. In our green programs, we recycle 20 tons of paper, cardboard, and other recycling materials from Peralta Oaks, 12 tons of organic recycling. And at the main office, we replaced all the overhead lights in the second, third, and fourth floors to LEDs. So we've created 8 new workspaces recently at the main office, reconfigured the land office to a conference room. We've installed new AV systems at Trudeau 2A and 3A at the main office, installed new HVAC controls at the main office in the Trudeau Training Center. And again, we've replaced all the overhead lighting. In future projects, we're going to replace the emergency generator at the main office, replace the solar system. Those panels are now over 20 years old. Install solar panels and backup system at Trudeau, and add surveillance cameras and outdoor lighting at Peralta Oaks North. And we'll be installing soon clear shields for the open counter spaces at the main office and paint the breezeway. And that's the end of my presentations. If there's any questions?
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. It's so important to recognize your work and the people that you work with. So much of it's sort of behind the scenes, but you make things happen that make people's lives easier and more comfortable. And I wanted to say it was so nostalgic to see the picture of your crew there in the lobby, because we're always so used to seeing all of them and saying hi to them. So if you do see them, please tell them hello for us.
Will do. Yeah, that particular picture was taken before COVID, obviously, when we were able to. But yeah, that is something that people really miss, is the personal touch, the just being able to chat with each other. So that part has been really tough.
Yeah.
It'll be nice to get back to a little semblance of normal, hopefully mid-year next year.
Yes, and thank you for keeping those PPEs coming and available. So important, that work that you're doing there too. So other board members, would you like to make a comment? I see AGM Deborah Ocker would like to make a comment.
Thank you, President Corbett. Michael, you've accomplished so much in the time that you've been here, but the one thing I think you're most proud of and I'm most proud of is that you made customer service like the central part of what your team is providing, and it really shows, and you get such high marks for, you know, all the requests that come in, and it's been really great working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think our department, it does touch everywhere out in the district. I mean, we have our deliveries going out there, and so that's something that we're really proud of.
Without a doubt. Thank you. Director Lane.
I just want to say thank you for all you've done too, Mike, and in looking at what you've been managing to do when things have been closed. I think you're leaving it on a high note, and when people come back, they're going to be able to say, "Oh, Mike did that for us." So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lane. Director Wieskamp.
You know, I have never seen you get excited. And I remember when y'all were going through the elevator process and people were like irritated and irritable, and probably me too, but I wasn't there all the time. But you know, you just don't think you got things done. I saw you outside sometime when you had a crew in there talking about a project, calm and serene, and you got things done for us. And I think they're going to love the new coffee shop lunchroom. So I hope that happens soon. But you've done a superb job. And I think all the employees, all the board members, we all appreciate what you did for us.
Thank you, Director Wieskamp. Anybody else?
He still gets a party, so, you know, we'll be.
Save some
That's
for
right.
the
We'll
party.
save some more comments for later.
I do, yeah, we're gonna have something Thursday evening, but when we can, I think I want to do something at the Brazilian Room. as
Great.
well.
Right.
So
Great.
be sure to come to that as well.
Real time, real space again.
That sounds good. Thank you again.
I'll have to come back and get a cup of coffee at the new lunchroom.
That's right. The Michael McNally Coffee Corner.
Coffee Club.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments, questions? I see the clerk smiling. Would you like to say something?
Oh, Yolanda.
I'm going to be very professional, Michael. We'll do the other stuff on Thursday. But on behalf of the clerk's office, Sharon and I, we could not actually even begin to do our job without you and your staff. Some of the things that you've helped us to do have been so very menial, but so very important. Just like Director Wieskamp said, you never, ever, ever, ever get flabbergasted or and I know Sharon and I have driven you absolutely crazy, but we just want to say we could not have done this job without you. And I believe that most of the staff here will say the same thing. So I really appreciate you and I'm going to miss you. So thank you.
I really enjoyed
So is Sharon.
I enjoyed working with you both. You guys were fun.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any other comments before we move on to the next one? Thank you very much, Michael, and we'll see you in a few days.
Okay,
Thank you for everything.
Thank you. That is the GM report.
Okay,
Excellent.
so next item, Madam District Council, are there any announcements from closed session?
Board President Corbett, there are no announcements from closed session.
Thank you very much. And we have board comments. And I'm going to go straight across the line. In fact, you know what? I'm going to set a precedent. I'm going to say mine real quick. I attended the Executive Committee, the Finance Committee, the EOC meetings, and I met with AFSCME and maybe one or two more things. And that's my report. Director Waspy.
That's twice you set the precedent for me, but thank you. So I'll do it fast. On the 19th, I did operations, Elko Fire Commission. On the 20th, I did a Bay Point dedication. It was really well done, and I appreciated it. And I also attended the Public Task Force meeting. On the 25th, I taped a presentation for the district holiday party and employee appreciation dinner. That was really a lot of fun. I know you all did it. I can't wait to see how it turned out. I met with Eric Fuller and Lisa Baldinger talking about legislative items on the 25th also, and I took an incredible hike in Redwood Park on Sunday. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Wieskamp.
Oh, come on. You played a lot of golf at a course, didn't you, Dennis?
That's true, yes.
We know that. Let's see, on the 18th, the Alameda County Special District Association meeting, the operations meeting on the 19th, the fun recording of the Zoom for the service awards. I'd rather be there, but okay. I like to check in whenever I can catch them because they're busy people. Chris Lyle said he was so pleased he finally got the permit to clean up that mess from the burned shed, his whole workshop out there on Vasco. And he still says every day, lots of visitors to Brushy Peak. People who've never been there before. It's just, he said, it's just amazing. And when I talked to Matt McDonald at Coyote Hills, he said in November they had 79,000 people. He said, what is good though, a lot of them are coming back and are learning some of the rules of how to behave in a park, which he really appreciates. And the last thing, if the board hasn't received a copy, Brian Holt wrote an excellent letter on the Aramis Solar Project that is being considered by the county out in North Livermore. A lot of us locally are concerned about it, view sheds, agriculture, and all the rest of it. So I trust that, as was suggested by Brian in the letter and others, that they will not approve it until the county develops a solar policy. So I hope you get the letter, and I think you'll agree that it's too valuable to do what they're talking about. and I support solar. Got it on my roof. That's it.
Thank you very much, Director Wieskamp. Director Eccles.
More problem.
Oops, we need to hear you.
It's that kind of night.
Here I am.
There you are. Oops. Wait, you went back to mute again. There you are.
Okay. All right. Now I got to go extra quick because I've just used up a minute of my time. So anyway, on the 18th, I met with Assemblymember Buffy Wicks along with Director Rosario and our government affairs folks. On the 20th, attended at least part of the Bay Point dedication. Couldn't stay for the whole thing because I had to go record my video for the staff celebration. So that was good fun. And on the 23rd, I attended the Contra Costa County Liaison Committee. Very interesting updates. And I just wanted to quickly say thanks again to staff for all your help with questions on both the class and comp study and the budget. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Director Eccles. Director Lane.
Yes, I've been in the parks a little bit. I got to Huckleberry, Sycamore, Sutter Shoreline, and I had a chance to be part of the dedication for Bay Point, which I really enjoyed. Going back a few days later with my son, Doug, we were blown off of the planet. So I was going to take this walk around Harrier and the wind was against us. And I said, I'm just not going to do that. But it was very interesting because you could see boats like you were right on them coming down the strait. So it's a beautiful park. I had a chance to go to Contra Costa Liaison, which is very interesting. And did go to PAC. Dee and I did PAC together. I came a little bit late from Liaison. And then I had a chance to do the Zoom presentation for the Service Awards, which is going to be a different sort of experience for sure on the 16th. So that's pretty much it. Thank you. Oh, I wanted to say that I was very impressed with the things that have been completed in our general manager report here. The corral that was burned out at Round Valley group camp, the sheep shelter is in Tilden, has been built in Tilden, and the greenhouse is completed at the Meyer sisters. So people have been accomplishing some pretty wonderful things in this last few months.
Thank you, Director Lane. Director Rosario.
Okay.
On your mark, get set, go.
Okay. On the 18th and 19th, I attended the stewardship seminar, which was fabulous as usual. Great presentations. And then on the 18th, I attended the meeting with Buffy Wicks. And also on the 18th, I had a meeting with Ana Alvarez and Matt Grau and Becky Tuden regarding our ongoing meetings with the City of Oakland and Lake Temescal. And then on the 19th, I had the Operations Committee meeting. And then on the 20th, I did my filming for the annual event. And then on the 23rd, attended the Finance Committee meeting. Again, kudos to the Finance Department, Deborah Ocker and her staff, fabulous. And then again on the 23rd, that evening, I attended the PAC meeting. And then on the 30th, I met with Christina Kelchner and Lisa Gorgian about updates on the Roberts project. That's it.
Thank you very much, Director Rosario. Director Coffey.
Okay, on the 18th and 19th, I also attended the stewardship seminars. I want to congratulate Matt Grau and the whole group that put that together. I just was amazed, as I know, Dee, you are at what this organization does, and so proud of it. On the 20th, I attended the Bay Point dedication, and the next day went back to really take it all in. And Director Lane is absolutely right. All of a sudden, we have from the main loop trail in that park a view of the river that we didn't have before, and it is absolutely fabulous. Oh, on that evening, I played another Black Diamond Mine Kahoot trivia game online on Facebook, and the software must have been rigged because I did really poorly. I don't know. I got to talk to these Black Diamond Mine naturalists about the software. On the 23rd, I attended the Finance Committee and the Contra Costa Liaison Committee, which was a really good, feel-good type of meeting that we get to have with Contra Costa compatriots who are all in the family, basically. On the 25th, I also did my video role in the holiday party. That about it. I just do want to say that I appreciate having telephone and Zoom meetings with senior managers on a whole variety of topics over the last month, including a better understanding of HR matters, a better understanding of pending legal matters, and the GM transition issues. Over the 4-day holiday, 4-day long holiday weekend, I hiked with my wife in Miller Knox, Dotson Marsh. We did Empire Mine Road between Deer Valley and Black Diamond. Again, hiked around Bay Point again, and did the Pinole Shores Bay Trail. With a whole bunch of other people, we spent our Thanksgiving long holiday out in these parks and these trails. And they're very busy, and people are very much enjoying them because there ain't a lot else to do. And boy, I'm glad I had that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Coffey. Director Eccles. Oops.
She did.
You already called on me.
She did hers.
Oh,
She's giving you a second chance.
You moved in the squares.
Oh, okay. If you want to give me a second.
You were.
I forgot to mention that I attended the stewardship as well. So.
Oh, good. And I forgot to say I was at Bay Point, which is a
did too.
beautiful, beautiful place. Beautiful place. So everybody, thank you so much. I have one last thing. I would like to ask, it's time to appoint the nominating committee for the board members, for the board executive officers for next year. And I would like to ask Director Waspy and Director Wieskamp to join me on that committee for nominations. Do you accept?
Yes.
I'll accept.
Thank you very much.
I
Okay.
want to give compliments to our president for getting us through a lengthy, detailed meeting in such good order.
And we almost ended on time as well. We got back up again.
Pretty darn good.
So thank you to all of you board members. We have one more meeting this year, but it's been a really great year. And I just really appreciate the partnership and the teamwork and, just fighting through all these changes together, and your support of all of our amazing employees in all the far reaches of the Park District. So thank you all. It was a good meeting. Look forward to seeing you in another box soon. In the meantime, be healthy and take care.
Good night.
All right.